Hello? Can you all hear me? Okay.
Go ahead.
Today is Wednesday, January 6, 2021. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia. Donald Trump's white domestic terror supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, causing senators and members of Congress to flee the grounds. One woman is dead after being shot. A curfew is in effect as we speak. We'll give you the latest on what's happening with all the mayhem in Washington, D.C. that is simply at the feet of Donald Trump and his Republican supporters. Here in Georgia, they've declared John Ossoff the winner of the Georgia seat against incumbent Senator David Perdue. That means Democrats now control the U.S. Senate. We'll break all of this down right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's time to bring the funk. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin!
3, 2, go ahead.
Folks, Roland Martin here, reporting live from Atlanta, Georgia. What we are seeing in the nation's capital right now, we have actually seen before. Folks want to say they're shocked, they're stunned, but the reality is we at this show are not shocked and stunned by what we are seeing. This is some video that was shot earlier today of protesters, Donald Trump supporters, storming the United States Capitol, running past barricades, blowing past and fighting with Capitol Hill police officers as well. You see them there also taking apart those barricades. What has happened today has been short of stunning. It has been short of stunning. And that is what we've seen. They have stormed the U.S. Capitol. They literally jumped on the floor of the United States House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. They also were in the offices of people like Speaker Nancy Pelosi. One woman was shot. We now can report that she has died as a result of a gunshot wound to the throat. What happened earlier today was this here. Donald Trump went out there and spoke to his supporters, but he was not particularly happy. Then he called on them to march to the U.S. Capitol. You want an understanding of what's going on? Here is this tweet right here. There's this guy, Rogan Hanley, calls himself a lawyer and a patriot. This was his tweet. This is Anthony. We should have this up. Yeah. This is the Million Patriot March. People came from the West Coast, the Midwest, and even overseas for one purpose: to fight for America and a president that fights for us. He then says history. Well, he's absolutely right. It is history. And what they have done is they have caused the U.S. Capitol to be on complete. Right now, what people have to understand is we have seen this nonsense before. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting. They cannot tolerate losing. So as a result, what did Donald Trump do? What did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump then incited these folks all over Washington, D.C. Folks, again, what we're dealing with right now are individuals, Republicans, who are committing treason. They are committing treason across this country. And every single Republican who stood with Donald Trump, who said they were not going to support the electors that took place today, they should be thrown out of Congress. What we have to understand here, you got to understand here that what you're dealing with here is you're dealing with white domestic terrorists. Media
exactly.
Long time was calling these folks that were saying, well, they're protesters. No, they went from protesters to a mob. And let's be real clear. If this was Black Lives Matter, there would be hundreds of dead black people right now. If this was Black Lives Matter, I can guarantee you that the U.S. Capitol cops would have not have been unprepared for what took place. Never in any of our minds did we think that somehow that you would have folks out here who would be able to storm the U.S. Capitol, go through the Capitol Rotunda, and then be engaged in gunfire with security inside of the U.S. House chamber. Folks, again, shocking, stunning, but
This is something that you need to understand. For 5 years ago, I called this. 5 years ago, when I was on ABC This Week, I said point blank that what Republicans have done is they have allowed evil into their home, and evil now has consumed them. This party has been following Trump, and Donald Trump has been sitting at the White House loving what he saw today. He saw these people fighting for him. There is blood on the hands of people like Congressman Louis Gohmert, who actually said that, oh, this decision for Trump lose is going to incite violence in the streets. Now, your comments did that. Here's a photo here of one of these protesters sitting in this person is sitting at the desk of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Sitting at the desk of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. That's what this photo here is. Okay, that's what this photo is. All right, folks. I'm going to show you some other videos and some photos of what's been going on again with these protesters. Just excuse me, these mob, these crazy folks, and just so you understand here, okay. And let's see if I can sit here and I'm gonna pull this video up because Donald Trump also addressed this group today, and then there was a particular guy. A black guy who was one of the folks who was speaking. Let's see if I can find it. And you know, they were sitting here, out here. You know, also, by the way, that idiot Representative Vernon Jones of Atlanta, he also spoke at that so-called rally today, that Klan rally. You also had, let's see here, Rudy Giuliani spoke. You know, Donald Trump came down and spoke to these people. What you're dealing with here again, folks, you're dealing with people who cannot stand the fact that Donald Trump was beaten. They support this crazy man. They support his crazy policies. And all of these Republicans, let me say it again, all of these Republicans who have been playing footsie with these people, all these folks who have been supporting them, all these people who have been backing them, folks, they need to answer for this. DC police announced 13 people have been arrested. Please explain to me how in the hell only 13 people have been arrested when we saw hundreds and thousands of these people literally storming the United States Capitol. There's no other way to explain any of this other than they allowed this mayhem to happen. They allowed these people to do what they did. Go to my iPad. This is that crazy black Republican, David Harris. Again, another one of these rabid Trump followers. They have blood on their hands as well. Every single person, the 74 million Trump supporters who voted for him, you caused this to happen today. We're not going to sugarcoat any of this. You caused this to happen. It's pure and simple what you caused to happen. That's what you have caused. I want to go to my panel right now. A. Scott Bolden is former chair of National Bar Association Action Committee. We have D. Hawkins Hagler, former Georgia State Representative. Folks, let me know when Monique Presley, legal analyst. Monique is on, legal analyst and crisis manager, joins us as well. Scott, I'll start with you, and that is to see what has taken place today, to see police there out in front of the U.S. Capitol, to see it on lockdown. They literally are going room to room in the U.S. Capitol to make sure that all of these Trump white domestic terrorists are no longer in the Capitol. Some of these folks have said they plan on staying there. This again right here, this is some video that was shot here of them earlier in the Capitol Rotunda. This is, again, they stormed the U.S. Capitol. This is some of that video. This is some of that video here. Here is, I'm going to show you in a second. This is, again, some of the other video of them marching. And remember, Donald Trump, he wanted more from that march, the Capitol. So he ordered them. He said, march to the U.S. Capitol.
That's right.
Donald Trump is complicit, Scott, in the violence and the mayhem that has resulted today in that woman's death. Donald Trump, if the Republicans in Congress had any guts, Scott, they would immediately remove Donald Trump from office.
It's outrageous. And it's not funny. It's not Trump being Trump. This was an insurrection, if you will. This was domestic terrorism. And we sat there and watched it. Him incite them an hour after the detractors on the Senate side and the House side challenged these certified votes. This is not funny. This was, they went into the Capitol and damaged property, if you will. And so I got two thoughts. One, where were the Capitol Police as well as the National Guard? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I got a really good, strong suspicion that they were told to stand down. There is no way, if Black Lives Matter, you should get the picture of what the Capitol looked like with the military surrounding it when Black Lives Matter protested, and then look at the Capitol when these Trump supporters got there at being incited by Donald Trump. Secondly, there are only 13 people that have been arrested. There will be more, but you raised a really good point. They got to go room to room, and anybody who's been at the Capitol, that is a monstrosity of a building. They have underground tunnels that take members to do their vote. They have offices. They have kitchens. They have all kinds of rooms where these people could be hiding out in. And they got to the speaker's desk and left her a letter, as I understand one of the reports. Are you kidding me? This is a sad day in America. And I got to tell you, they've got to do the work, though. They cannot let this stop this certification. And those detractors on House and Senate side, they need to go sit down somewhere because they're the problem and they're part of this crisis that we saw unfold today at the Capitol.
This Ollie Alexander, he's actually founder of this Stop the Steal. He literally released this video 2 hours ago talking about how this was a peaceful protest. Listen to this nonsense, Monique.
Look at this. And it's replicated on the other side. This is we the people. The growing frustrations of the government now is exactly what I've warned about. I've said that we need to make fair elections and transparent counting so that the people do not feel like the last resort is public demonstrations like this. Now, I want to say something. I don't disavow this. I do not denounce this. This is completely peaceful, looks like so far. And there are a couple of agitators that I obviously don't endorse, but this is completely peaceful. This is we the people, and this will only grow when our government and our media and the banks tell us to shut up and sit down, and that we can't investigate anything, we can't get to conclusions on anything, that we're locked in these tight bureaucratic deadlines that usher us to the next point to, whatever. So stopthesteal.us is going to be the home of the rebellion against an illegitimate government. Make the process fair.
Monique, they're trying their best to explain this away, but the reality is these people, this was an attempted coup d'etat in the United States.
By the president.
Right.
Monique?
Right, but that was a grifter. Okay, so let's separate. We have categories. We have people who are ignorant, who believe everything that Donald Trump says, and even though he never ever delivers for them, they still believe in and support him. And then we have people in the middle who don't believe anything that Donald Trump says, but believe that it's financially expedient, that it is economically best for them to support this Republican president as opposed to supporting the Democrats. And then we have people like old boy who you just showed. Who knows what he cares about? Who knows what he stands for? It probably doesn't stand for anything. The grift is real. He's seen an opportunity to gain attention by saying something, and it doesn't matter what he's saying. He's like a black Candace Owens or whoever else who just is positionless. But then when the attention comes from whatever position they land on, then they stick with that one. But the real point of today, see, because I'm wearing my blue, because I will not let you, whoever you are, who's still occupying the White House, whose name I won't mention, you won't get this. I'm wearing blue because Georgia is blue. I'm wearing blue because the United States is blue. I'm wearing blue because in just a few days, Vice President Kamala Harris and President-elect Biden will be sworn into office, and this entire country will be the thing that you hate the most. So I'm still celebrating. This is hideous. Everything that happened is hideous. I have more thoughts about what it would have been like if it had been BLM instead of these so-called good white folks. But for real, we're still winning, because even if they stopped us today, I guarantee you, either tonight or later tomorrow, Speaker Pelosi and about to be Speaker Schumer are going to reconvene, and the electoral votes will be cast. And on January 20th, we're going to get a new president. And if y'all didn't learn that you can't put a madman in office and expect anything different from this, God help you. But we won, right? The people who are sane have won. And it might be rough, because when you let an autocrat, a dictator, a treasonous person, somebody who lacks just basic like human skills, I mean, when you put the bottom of the barrel at the top, this is what you get.
Yep.
But it's gonna pass. And so he tried to steal my celebration, but you won't. Warnock won. Ossoff won. And you're out. Good luck.
Let me go to D here. D, I want to show you this here. This was a video that was posted earlier. U.S. Capitol Police, they're going to have to answer a hell of a lot of questions because this is a video where they had barricades, where they literally removed the barricades and allow these people to come onto the premises. What the hell is the point of barricades, D? Are you telling me that if there were 5,000 or 10,000 Black Lives Matter protesters, that they would just voluntarily remove the barricades? There were these videos of the Capitol Police escorting some people down the steps, some of them taking selfies with some of these people.
Roland, it is absolutely incredulous. Let me tell you something. It didn't have to be 5,000 or 10,000 Black Lives protesters. It could have been 5 or 10, and they would probably shot down with rubber bullets and tear gas immediately. Let me say, most of us on here have probably all been to the U.S. Capitol, even at the Georgia State Capitol. We couldn't even go through, as legislators, without going through the metal detector, okay? But when you go to the U.S. Capitol, there is an extra level of security. I have no idea how they got in, except someone had to let them in, not just the barricades, but someone had to let them in that building. I'll turn their faces. I'm convinced that someone way up told them to stand down and let the Proud Boy, terrorists, whoever you want to call them, walk straight into our place where the people's business takes place and tear it up and wreck it. They wreak absolute havoc. And even though I tried to celebrate my best today for Warnock and for Ossoff, because, I've been out in the street knocking on the, cabs like everyone else, because it's a very exciting time, we can't ignore them. Because I also work in foreign countries as well. And when people start doing crazy stuff like this, they're going to continue unless you nip it in the bud. And the Republicans created this Frankenstein, and they sure better fix it. They better fix it in a hurry. Because if one thing even happens to any of our Congressional Black Caucus members, I'm telling you, it's going to be smoke in the city.
This is actually the video right here, folks, of one of the woman who was shot inside the U.S. Capitol. This is, we don't know if this was the only person shot, if this was the woman who was killed, but there is a person who is dead. You see them with their guns drawn. You see what happened here. These folks were literally trying to storm the U.S. Capitol. That's what took place. We saw this sort of craziness that was actually happening today there in Congress. Excuse me. And here's the thing, folks. Congress was in session. Congress actually had to adjourn for a recess They were rushing people out of the U.S. Capitol, rushing folks out. It was complete chaos. We still are going to talk about what happened here in Georgia, of course, with John Ossoff today being declared the victor. I do want to bring in another guest right now. I want to bring in Rashawn Ray. He's a Rubenstein Fellow of Government Studies at the Brookings Institution. I also have Tom Bonnier, CEO of Target Smart, join us as well. And so Rashawn was supposed to, Rashawn, I think you're on mute, so please unmute yourself. Unmute him, please, Keenan. Rashawn was supposed to be on talking about COVID. We're supposed to talk to Tom about breaking down the numbers when it comes to the voters, but obviously all of this has caused all sorts of other drama here. Rashawn, I want to go to you. Just your thoughts about what you saw today, what we're still witnessing. A curfew is in effect as we speak. We also have these folks who are still clashing with police. Finally, we are seeing police push these people back, trying to clear the streets, but they don't care. They are adhering to their leader, Donald Trump, who told them, come to DC, take this to keep me in place. They were following his strict orders. Donald Trump and the Republicans cannot deny any of this. They caused this coup d'etat to happen, Rashawn.
Roland, you're exactly right. I mean, as always, it's great to be on with you talking about this difficult topic. I continue to appreciate the platform you provide. I want everyone to think about the images that we've seen today. And imagine if those people on the Capitol steps were not white. So we always frame it as if, what does it mean if a person is Black or Latino or Muslim or Asian? No, we need to imagine what it means to be white in America. That there are certain privileges that have been provided that allow for people to storm the U.S. Capitol, to take it over, to sit in the House Speaker's chair at her office and take a picture of her keyboard saying, we are not done yet. These are domestic terrorists. Trump has emboldened this. And I want people to go back to 4 years ago. When Trump was elected, what people have to realize is that every place that Trump campaigned in 2016, hate crimes increased over 200%. We've seen a continuation of that. And what people can't get over is that when democracy operates, that's the way that it should, like we've seen in Georgia, like we've seen in a lot of other places, and people got to the polls. There are domestic terrorists emboldened by the president of the United States that cannot handle that.
Tom, I want to bring you in here. Again, we were supposed to break down these election numbers. I'm going to try to get to some of that. But Tom, let's just be honest. What these people are also angry about, they're angry because Black people participated in democracy. They're angry that Black people in DeKalb County and Fulton County were the ones who put Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff over the top in Georgia. And that's how they are going to be 2 United States senators. They're angry because Donald Trump was pissed off that voters in Fulton County did not voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They are angry, led by Donald Trump and Republicans, because of Black voters in Philadelphia, in Detroit, in Milwaukee. This whole shenanigan today, this whole sideshow when it comes to the electors was all because Donald Trump and the Republican Party are pissed off that Black people wholesale rejected him and caused his defeat. And that's what we are seeing. We are seeing in 2021, white Americans do the exact same thing they did in previous eras when Black people went to the polls and voted for their interest.
First of all, Roland, thank you for having me on. I couldn't agree more. And I think the fact that we're seeing this happen on this day, the day after this historic election in Georgia, where you had turnout among Black voters, that there is only one other election in this country, in the history of this country, in any state where more Black voters went to the polls, and that was the general election in Georgia, where Joe Biden carried it. So this was the second highest turnout among Black voters in any election in any state in the United States history. So to see this happening today, I think you're exactly right. I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial that has been put forth by this president, but not just the president, his enablers, for the past 4 years. And this was always going to be the inevitable conclusion. We saw this, but the Republican Party humored him along the way. They not only humored him, they promoted his lies. They gave them credibility. And so these people come to Washington unable to believe the reality, which was this coalition that defeated Donald Trump, led by voters of color, that flipped states like Georgia and Arizona and delivered these blue wall states of Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan. They couldn't possibly believe that to be true, despite the fact that now over 70 court cases have been put in front of various courts, many of them in front of judges appointed by Donald Trump, and every single one of them has been rejected. There's no evidence, but that hasn't stopped them. And it's just this violent denial. And again, I think it's just the inevitable effect that we're seeing today. And it's sad.
The thing that, and I don't want, let me know y'all with Melanie Campbell, President and CEO of the Black Women's Roundtable, the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. She joins us. First of all, let me set this up. First of all, because of the mayhem taking place in Washington, D.C., this, and I'm calling it an attempted coup d'etat. I ordered our Roland Martin Unfiltered staff home. So normally we produce the show. We have a whole staff there in our control room in Washington, D.C. We are completely doing this show remotely. And so Anthony is here with me in Atlanta. Keenan White is my digital specialist. He is producing this out of Chicago. And so we are completely virtual doing this. And so if we have any glitches in audio, just understand we do not have a full complement of staff, but we still are making this thing possible by being able to stream this up through StreamYard. So we're going to figure out how to make it happen, and we are making it happen. The thing that we are dealing with here, and I want people to understand this, and I want people to not to completely misconstrue what I'm about to say. But while we were actually with the Warnock campaign, they had a brunch a little bit earlier for staffers, and we went by just to be with them and sharing their joy. And we saw this thing unfolding on the television. And I'll be honest, Monique, while this was happening, I literally was smiling. And the reason I was smiling is because I said, white America, 55% white women who voted for Donald Trump. I said, this on y'all. Y'all can't include us in the conversation. For all the people who said this could never happen, I was sitting there saying, we told you. Black people told you. The hashtag we used, we tried to tell you. We told America, if you elect this thug, what you are doing is you are letting this person into a power who will abuse the power. If y'all do this, what you are doing, you will cause serious harm. But see, Monique, they played footsie with the Tea Party. And they joined forces with them because they wanted power. Then they said, don't worry about it. We can control them. We got them. Then Obama finishes his term. Then Trump gets elected. Then you had the MAGites. Then you had them. And then all of a sudden, and they're crazy and rabid. Republicans, oh, no, we cool. We got it. We got it. We can control them. We're going to use them towards power. And all of a sudden, building, and Trump continues, and he's a thug, and he's continuing, and it's building, and it keeps going, and they keep playing with it. Then all of a sudden, oh, we're going to contest the election. Voter fraud, stolen, conspiracies, and they go along with it. And Josh Hawley in Missouri, and Ted Cruz of Texas, and all the 140 folks in the House. Oh, we're joining on because they were like, yeah, because we're going to run in 2024. So who can appeal to the Trump people? Now they're tweeting, we can't have this. We can't have this violence. Yes, but you unleashed this on America because all you wanted was power. And folks, this was February 21st. This was February 21st, Monique, on ABC This Week, February 21st, 2016. Listen to this.
They invited evil in, and now evil is taking over. Okay, 2009, the night of Obama's inauguration, we will stop him at every turn. They love the Tea Party anger. They took advantage of it in 10 and 12 and 14. They always said we can control it, we can harness it. Now all of a sudden, Trump is taking advantage of it. He led the whole birther deal. The Republican establishment at some point has to say, you know what? We played with fire, and now it's about to consume us. They have to accept some blame.
The Republican establishment never played with.
Monique, pure and simple, evil. They've accepted it. Now they got it.
They have to own it, but it's theirs. You know, I will go along with you and anyone else who says that they were trying to harness it. But to me, at the end of the day, when the devil showed himself as the devil, what I didn't learn, what was confirmed for me was they belong to him. They don't care, not really. The fact that they are themselves threatened with a siege on the Capitol, a siege on the Hart Building, you know, a siege on Rayburn. I mean, things that, as someone who worked in those buildings, my first job in DC, I was in Longworth, and then I worked in Rayburn. So I was working for Congressman Jack Brooks, who was then chair of the Judiciary, and then I worked for Congressman Charlie Wilson. I'm one of Charlie's angels. And so I look at this and I look at this and think about all the times that we had to be safe in place. We had to shelter in place where there maybe was a thought of a bomb. I was in the congressional offices during the anthrax attacks. So I was checking that mail and I got powder in the mail and I remember what that felt like. And then I was with the DC Attorney General's office for 9/11. And I had people in my family and my friends calling me tonight who were saying, call me back, text me back. And one of my girlfriends said to me after I responded, she said, okay, because this was reminding me of 9/11 when I was texting and texting and texting you and I couldn't get a response back. So these consequences are real for all of us. I'm sitting right now, you know, in Virginia, undisclosed location, but I'm under shelter in place. I have a curfew. I can't go get groceries for my kids if I want to. And I don't believe, frankly, that those in power, the McConnells of the world, the Kevin McCarthy's of the world, I refuse to believe they give a damn until they prove it. Because I think that they can hunker down now, they can hide, and then they'll still do whatever they were going to do tomorrow. And they won't really be worried about it to the point that they will come forward forcefully against the Trump machine, because it's not just that crazy man. It's everybody who has the intelligence, the information, the oppo that his organization has developed over the past 10 years. That's what they're worried about and susceptible to. They're worried about his demon spawn. They're worried about his lineage and what they're going to do in next elections. You know, I mean, Donald Trump could be gone off the face of the earth tomorrow and they would still be scared because they know that the vestiges of the Trump operation have them by the, you know, I'm a lady, so I won't say it. My point being, yes, the Capitol saw something today that it hasn't seen to this extent except by enemy bombers coming in. We haven't seen that threat. But this is something that the people who are in power can swallow comfortably. And I'm sure. Let's just watch tonight. See what they say tomorrow. They're not worried.
Ray Sean and Tom, as Monique was talking, I literally was thinking about Mother Emanuel. And Ray Sean, the reality is this here. The only reason the Confederate flag came down from the Capitol was because 9 Black people were gunned down in a church. I dare say that Republicans, they didn't learn from Heather Heyer in Charlottesville. They didn't learn from Donald Trump's both sides. But that woman, that video we showed, the woman who died, she died laying on a Trump flag. There is going to be I fundamentally believe, Ray Sean and Tom, there's going to be a reckoning in the Republican Party, because the way this is unfolded to storm the U.S. Capitol, there is no explaining this away. There is no, well, all of this bullshit about we need to be concerned about the feelings of the Trump voters. There you go. Exhibit A. Those are your feelings. What say you now? Rashawn first, then Tom.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Roland. I mean, the United States of America is what we thought it was. This is the United States of America, what we are seeing today in all of its bad and in all of its glory. Simultaneously, while that's happening, Jon Ossoff won the Senate runoff in Georgia. It is now 50-50. Kamala Harris breaks the tie in the Senate. And so when we think about these sort of things happening, what we saw today on the U.S. Capitol, and look, it's important for people to know this. I go to the Capitol quite often to meet with policymakers, to testify. And I mean, it literally looks like the combination of trying to go to the airport coupled with trying to get onto a military base. So we have to realize that also what we saw today was that the police who were supposed to be protecting those buildings also became troublesome bedfellows with those domestic terrorists who were taking it over. And we have to be very, very clear that police officers were participating in that. The other thing that's important for people to understand how historic this is, this coup d'etat, as we were calling it, storming the Capitol, has not happened. The last time it happened was the early 1800s, when we were still feuding with Great Britain. I mean, our republic was just being established. These people went into sacred ground. And I agree with you that we're going to see a mass reckoning in the Republican Party. They lost the presidency. Of course, the House is still controlled by Democrats. They have now essentially lost the Senate because Vice President Kamala Harris breaks the tie after our fraternity brother, Reverend, now Senate-elect Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff won. And what I heard today were a lot of Republicans who were actually upset. And it's interesting why they were upset. They were upset because for one of the first times, their lives were actually disrupted in what was happening. And I'm very interested to see what's going to happen tonight and the rest of the day. But look, this is it. When people have been able to cheat and have been able to get where they are because of their symbolic privilege as it relates to whiteness, when things are fair and when equity is being pursued, they feel cheated and they act out and they want to go take over something and do more damage. And that's what we're seeing today.
Tom, go right ahead.
Roland, I couldn't agree more with Rashawn. And to your point, in terms of how we've dealt with these Trump voters, our media especially was just ill-equipped to handle this situation from the beginning. And when we think back to the 2016 presidential election, there was this obsession after that election to find these Trump-Obama voters, these mythical swing voters. And if I read another New York Times profile in a diner in Western Pennsylvania of these white working class voters, and they wouldn't even say working class was always just code for white. And the media has slowly come around, and we're seeing that, but they sowed the seeds of this years ago in terms of how we talked about these Trump voters, how we talked about this overt racism, how we talked about Republican elected officials at the highest level using this racism to their own advantage. We still see this with what Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley are doing today, and they're not alone. So yes, there has to be a reckoning within the Republican Party. I don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, obviously, after the results last night, and they look at this and the fact that you look at a state like Georgia, and as Stacey Abrams and others have said, Georgia isn't a red state, it's a voter suppressed state. And we saw the effect when black voters, the voter suppression still exists there, but the turnout was so overwhelming that Georgia made history beyond the numbers that I quoted earlier. It's the only state in this election where it flipped presidentially from the previous election. We flipped a Senate seat. We flipped 2 Senate seats, picked up a congressional seat. It's the only state where that happened. And so Republicans have to look at that, a state that they considered a solid state for themselves, and they lost badly. Obviously close elections, but they lost them all. And they have to have this moment of reckoning. My concern is that there are too many leaders in the Republican Party still who are addicted to exactly what you mentioned earlier. It started with the Tea Party, with Sarah Palin, when they saw the massive attendance at these rallies and they realized that this overt racism was a way to gain power. And my concern is that there are too many in the party that are still addicted to that.
You're absolutely right when it comes to what we've seen with this election. Monique is right. We're not going to allow this to take away from what has happened here in Georgia. We are also now joined by Melanie Campbell with the Roundtable with Law for your birth today. But before I go to Melanie and Lauren, and then we'll back around to other panelists. More panelists who we have, but this is obviously not a normal situation. So I'm going to be working folks in. Do me a favor, if you're not speaking, just do me a favor, if you can mute your microphone. That way, when you move, if you're doing anything, we're not picking that up. We're not in our control where we can actually mute it ourselves. We're working on that. This was, before I go to you, Melanie, this was a video that was posted. This is what I'm talking about. These Trump white domestic terrorists overrun the state capitol. And watch this. Anthony, get ready to go to my iPad. This is a video here of a U.S. Capitol police officer taking a selfie with one of these people. Watch this. The NAACP, this was their tweet. It's a dark day in America when a United States Capitol police officer decides to take a selfie with a terrorist, and they wonder why we don't feel safe, Melanie.
Yeah, Roland, thank you for inviting me to join the conversation. What I'm seeing that and so many other things, first of all, many of us, you and many of us who get involved in activism and know how these things are done, you kind of saw something wasn't right before everything broke out. Because you looked and you saw all these people, you saw and you saw no enforcement around, right? They don't let you get to the Capitol like that. And so it makes one to wonder, yes, they talk about somebody broke through the windows and all that, but it just also, when you see a Capitol police officer taking pictures, like, are some of y'all complicit? I don't have any facts, but I've been around a long time. I'm like, something's wrong with what we saw play out today, that you could have them infiltrate that building to such a degree that they were able to get into the bowels of that building, into the actual chamber, and take a seat, right? Get into Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi's office, and just hang out and hang around, right? So what I believe, I will say this tonight, I bet when the investigation is done and thoroughly done, there's going to be some questions about what was going on with some of the people. And we know in law enforcement and a lot of other places, white supremacists are in those spaces. And so it makes one to wonder what else was going on. Was it just that they bum rushed the door? Were they already in those buildings? Were they already, you had 100+ Republican members who were playing this game today in the first place? Did y'all let them in early today? I've never in all of my life been able to see somebody get into a Capitol with a flag that's considered a weapon by most accounts. So seeing that officer take that picture makes one to wonder what's going on with some of the officers that are part of the Capitol Police.
Lauren Victoria Burt, you have walked those halls of Congress many times as a reporter. This photographer, JMG Pics on Twitter, he posted this. This is Robert Big O. Burnett. He took a letter from Speaker Pelosi's desk after storming the U.S. Capitol. This is the photo of that particular guy. I guess he's dressed in the bathrobe. I don't know what the hell is going on here. But Lauren Burke, how the hell were Capitol Police not prepared for this? These people were saying, we're coming. Trump was saying, hey, y'all come on. That light presence, you swear it was a normal day on the U.S. Capitol.
Roland, I mean, I don't know where to begin, really. I've been around the U.S. Capitol since 1996. I've dated 2 U.S. Capitol police officers, one of whom was involved with everything today. And of course, I was texting many friends at the Capitol today. It should have been absolutely impossible what happened today. If I heard my boyfriend say once, I've heard him say it 1 trillion times, that they drilled to secure the floor of the Capitol, secure the building. I was there during 9/11 when they had a huge perimeter. I was at the Capitol for the first Million Man March when I worked for ABC News. And the second, the anniversary 20 years later, riot police, et cetera, and so on. You know, the idea that you could not have a perimeter today, knowing that these people were coming, knowing that the president had already incited them, knowing that the last time they were here, they went after Metropolitan AME and several other black churches. We know all of those things, and somehow or another, nobody's ever prepared for this. It's absolutely outrageous. And I'm sure you have been doing what I've been doing all day, which is texting members of Congress who are in the complex. Most of whom I've been texting are locked down in their offices. But the idea that somebody could get on the floor of the Senate chamber or on the floor of the House chamber with that level of ease is completely outrageous, completely outrageous. There is a SWAT team that circles the Capitol all day long. There's 2 of them in a big black truck. They're basically the Capitol SWAT team. Really, they're called the CERT team at the U.S. Capitol. There's a guy with there's 2 guys with a Rock River rifle, automatic rifle, sitting on the top of the Capitol right there. There's 2 sets of Capitol Police on the outside when you come in, and on the inside when you hit the metal detector at either door, whether you're on the Senate or House side. So the first question has to be, how did these people get into the building? Did they bum rush the door? Did they push their way in? The building was closed. Only staff was allowed in today. So how this happened, the after action report should be quite interesting, but quite frankly, somebody should be resigning over this. There's no way in the world this should have happened. Anybody who's been on the Hill for any amount of time knows that this is on the level of, and you know, Reverend Al Sharpton brought up today at MSNBC, I have no knowledge of this whatsoever, and I hate putting this out there, but he had kind of alluded to maybe there was some sort of, you know, traitorous activity with the U.S. Capitol Police. You almost want to believe that because it should not have happened. And you know, it reminds me of Charlottesville. We had the same thing with Charlottesville. These guys marched through UVA with torches. Mike Signer, the mayor of Charlottesville, and Terry McAuliffe, the governor at the time, act like it's no big deal. They do it twice. You know, they're saying anti-Semitic and racist things. They're clearly white supremacists. Everybody falls asleep because this is part of the problem. A lot of white people do not take the activity of other white people that is dangerous seriously enough. They wait until something happens and then they want to take action. Well, in this case, it's particularly stupid because these people were in Washington, D.C. on December 12th. And they burned a bunch of stuff and punched a bunch of people in the mouth at random on the streets of Washington, D.C. And only 20, 30 people get arrested. And now here they are back again, and everybody's acting surprised. The sergeant of arms acting surprised. And then when the mayor of D.C. and the Speaker of the House do the right thing and call for the National Guard, they can't get it. And the governor of Virginia has to send the Virginia National Guard in. Outrageous. But the first thing is, these members of Congress, they're going to come back in at 8 o'clock. The Senate is coming back in at 8 o'clock. And the question is Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, who was begging on Twitter for Trump to do something, going to shut their mouth and put country over Donald Trump? Or are we going to see the same nonsense again? That's the question. Because I don't get it. I think this is completely ridiculous and crazy.
Scott Bolden, this is a photo that Axios posted. This is literally one of Trump's white domestic terrorists sitting in the seat of the Senate president. These people got access to the floor of the United States Senate. Now, if there's one thing here, look, those of us who've been to the U.S. Capitol, I am a reporter. I can't even get walked onto the floor of the U.S. Senate by a senator. They were roaming around. They've been rummaging through the desk of members of Congress. This is never thought would absolutely see anything like this, in this country. But what we have to understand, Scott, is that these people are not going away because their dear leader released a video, and you know what he did in it? Started off by saying they stole the election. He is encouraging this and will continue to encourage it. Scott, when the House and the Senate comes back, the guts should be remove Donald Trump from the Oval Office right now. Make sure you're off of mute, Scott. I'm not hearing Scott. Scott on mute? Okay, I'm not hearing Scott. Let me go. D, if you could speak to that.
We're just listening to all of the guests tonight, the panelists. Everybody is right on point. It is unbelievable how they went into the chambers and sat down. I mean, it was like they were going, it was their house. I'm going over to your house for a picnic and I'll be there when you get there. This is unheard of. And so I think the reason that we're all acting like this is because we are literally shocked that this has happened at the United States Capitol on a day like today, when we're supposed to be celebrating, well, at least for me and most of us on here, we're celebrating the election of two people in Georgia that's going to shift the dynamics. And instead, we're trying to figure out how rogue terrorists got into the Capitol. And there's no way they could have gotten in there unless they were escorted in. So I think all of us, well, I'm going to go a little further. I know it's a conspiracy because there's no way you can get to the United States Capitol unless you were escorted in. That many people with batons and hammers and, in the rotunda chasing police officers. I've seen videos that they were chasing Capitol Police through the rotunda. I mean, were the Capitol Police told to stand down? Why didn't they shoot on sight? I'm not understanding what's happening here. I mean, they were under siege. So they should have been trying to at least fight for their lives while they were in the Capitol. Because what if they would have shot the Capitol Police? I mean, I'm not understanding what's happening, bro. I don't know what's going on.
Let me go to Monique, and then I'm going to go to Scott. Hopefully we can hear him again. Also, Lauren just sent me this text that NBC is reporting that Twitter has suspended the account of Donald Trump for the next 12 hours. Monique.
Praise God. Thank you, Jesus. That's helpful, at least. So I just want to say, as somebody who has worked on the Hill and somebody who has worked in DC as a senior litigator for the Office of the Attorney General and represented the DC Police Department, even when Charles Ramsey was there for the case that he's been talking about over and over again on CNN tonight, the Pershing Park case, where a whole bunch of people were arrested that shouldn't have been arrested. And I came in after that. I understand a lot about why the DC Police Department acted in the manner they did, but I want to speak up right now for DC Mayor Muriel Bowser. I want to speak up right now for the brand new, like just today's the 5th, 3 days ago, new chief of the DC Police Department of Conti, Chief Conti, Robert Conti. They did everything they could do. Okay. Muriel Bowser did not ask for the National Guard today. She knew that the crazies were coming. She knew that the anarchists were coming. She knew that the Proud Boys had a whole bunch of hotel reservations. She knew all of that. So she did what she's supposed to do as a territory, because DC isn't a state yet. And she requested activation of the National Guard. That was over 24 hours ago. So they thought that they were going to be secure. Do you know why the National Guard was nowhere to be found? The DOD, Trump's DOD, is who's responsible for activating the National Guard. The request has to be granted by the feds. So remember,
Monique, as you're talking, just give me 1 second. The National Association of Manufacturers. I'm reading a tweet here from, in fact, here it is right here. The National Association of Manufacturers, they have called, this is according to a tweet from Howard Dean, they have called for the immediate imposition of the 25th Amendment to remove Trump immediately. Go right ahead.
right. Okay. So the people who put the guns in the hands of the people who stormed the Capitol.
No. This is National Association of Manufacturers. These are not gun manufacturers. The manufacturing industry. Go ahead.
All right. So the Capitol Police work at the direction of the federal government. The National Guard works at the direction of the federal government. So those are Trump agents. They only go when he says go. So when people are talking about why weren't there people there, why weren't they ready, District of Columbia was ready. The entirety of the District of Columbia Police Department was activated and out in the streets. But even after there had been an assault on the Capitol and the different barricades had been breached, I think 3 levels had been breached, and that west side had been breached to gain entry. And to answer Lauren's question, they gained entry from a door where there was no guarding, but it wouldn't have mattered because there were too many of them. When all of that happened, DC police, according to federal law, has to gain permission to enter the Capitol.
Right.
So in order to secure the premises, Muriel Bowser came on here and explained like 2 hours ago, we just gained permission to lock this down. So I'm saying, yes, there were failings. They were intentional. DOD could have said yes to National Guard yesterday. They didn't. State National Guard came before National Guard, Federal National Guard came. So that was all intentional.
Money, here's the deal. Here's the deal. There are people in there. First of all, there are people in outside of Washington, D.C. who don't understand how all of these pieces work. So for instance, they don't understand. No. I got all of that. And all I'm simply saying is when Lauren was talking about in terms of what I'm talking about, I'm not speaking of DC police. What I'm talking about is U.S. Capitol Police. And what I'm saying is U.S. Capitol Police were grossly unprepared for what took place today. And that's part of the fundamental issue we're having. But here's the deal. I'm not about to get caught up in also the whole police deal. The greater threat here is that this is January 6th. There's an inauguration in 14 days. Unless something is done, Scott, unless people literally are arrested and thrown in jail, unless when you have insurrections, you're supposed to take down insurrections. And so,
excuse me.
No, hold on.
Roland, they've only killed black people. If you look at
I understand that, but I know that.
Shoot white people.
But the point I'm making,
they don't do that.
The point I'm making, Scott, this is an insurrection, and you better deal with this because these people are armed, and we saw what they did in Michigan. in Idaho, in Wisconsin. Trump gave them the green light. It's going to continue. Scott, hopefully we got your microphone issue fixed. Go. All right, I still cannot hear Scott. So Scott, you may need to do a reboot, drop out of StreamYard, and then come back into it. And so please do that.
What's
the point? I can't hear Scott at all, so I'm not quite sure of what's going on with his audio. The point I was just making there, Tom, is we better deal with it. I mean, this is. I have been warning people. First of all, forget not just 5 years ago on ABC this week. I'm gonna go back to 2009 when I kept saying, I said, we are in the age of white minority resistance. Because of the demographic shifts, when Obama got elected, these people cannot handle what is about to happen. Tom, it's going to continue. And the Republican Party, they see these people as their base. They see them as their rabid followers. And so this is going to be the moment. There's now going to be January 6th before and January 6th after. And this is now all on the Republican Party. Forget Trump. This is going to be on McConnell, McCarthy, Scalise, the RNC, their funders, their donors. It's going to be on them. They right now are going to have to make a decision, Tom. Are you with America or are you with sedition and treason? We can't, Tom, we cannot allow any other conversation politically to take place. They are going to have to pick a side. Either you're going to be so-called real patriots or you are with sedition and treason.
Well, we were talking about in terms of the consequences and the moment of reckoning for the Republican Party, and the fact that this needs to be a moment of reckoning for them, but not just for the party, for the country. That it's a cancer that they have created, that they have let into the bloodstream and the body of our American democracy, and they are truly the only ones who can remove it. But I think the challenges are how we see it's being dealt with at this moment. And it's obviously very early at this point. But again, we see no reports of those terrorists who stormed and took over the Capitol being arrested, being removed in cuffs. In fact, we've seen videos of them walking out and walking away. Now, hopefully they will face justice, but that certainly points to a level of white privilege that is breathtaking. And so we'll see. In order to begin to heal this democracy, if I had control of things there, and I don't, but Congress needs to return. They need to vote immediately to accept the results of this election and the electoral college votes, and then they need to vote to impeach and remove President Trump. I think it's that simple.
What we saw here, so we lost D, we lost Scott. Melanie, I want to go to you. This is also a lesson. Tom referenced this earlier, Melanie. Mainstream media play games with this.
Right.
They kept acting like no big deal. Oh, Trump's tantrum. For the longest, they wouldn't use the word lie. Those of us who study our history, we saw this. Mm-hmm. We knew what was coming. Right. We knew that man loses. This was going to happen. And so when Tom says, I need to see people arrested, you damn right. I need to see people in twisty ties behind their back. I need to see 18-wheeler paddy wagons. Mm-hmm. But what this was, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to sit here. We don't want to hurt their feelings. They're Trump people. Damn their feelings. These people literally want to overthrow the government. That's what you got to deal with. That's what you got. You got to deal with them like trash.
Right. And that's what they are, right? And Roland, you said something earlier about how long this has been going on, right? This has been going on since Obama got elected, right? They didn't just start. Trump, stoked what was already there. So that's why he started dealing with the birtherism issue. So this has been going on. I remember being on that mall when Dr. Height was still living, and was still doing the Black family reunion on the mall, and coming to a Black leadership forum meeting, and her having a concern. Why? Because we knew that all of the what quote unquote Tea Party folks were showing up. I had never seen that level of hatred in my adult life, at least. What I saw, and many of us went out there just to kind of be a team within the civil rights community to ease some of her concerns, and being on that mall and seeing that level of hatred. So it didn't just start, right? He took it and he put it on steroids. And the reckoning, what we saw today and it's still going on, because they're still on the streets, and I see them pulling up buses. So hopefully we're going to see some people get locked up. But at the end of the day, this is just the culmination of it. And they kept on playing with this fire. They kept on playing with it after he got elected, Mitch McConnell and all the rest of them, and Ted Cruz, and that whole cabal. I was going to say something else, but that cabal. And all of them have to really, because at the end of the day, when they came in there, they were pissed with them too. They were pissed with Mike Pence. It was going to be an equal opportunity problem had they gotten in there while they were still in there, right? So the question becomes, and you're right, the media getting ratings and just let this stuff go on and on and on. And so we're at this inflection point where to thank God for Black folks and the Black vote, because we saved this democracy and we keep on saving it. And in Georgia, with Ossoff and Reverend Warnock being able to come and have that 50-50 vote. And then the other part of the optics of all of that, it's like, it's such a time as this. We are in this moment in this country, right? And Black people are stepping in, and we're carrying the load of this democracy on our backs, right? And so the demand has to be, in this first 100 days, as this administration come in, they got to play hardball if they want to see this democracy, this United States of America, be in America. They're going to come in ready to get the work done. And yeah, you can be bipartisan, but you have the first woman and the first Black and Asian American woman who is now has the tiebreaker. You have the White House, the House, and the Senate. And so the first 100, they got to come in there and get some things done. And that Department of Justice got a lot of work to do. That Homeland Security got a lot of work to do. FBI got a lot of work to do. And I suspect that they need to lock up as many of them. The fact that they have those folks on camera, they need to be prosecuted, because if they don't, then what? Because racism never left the shores of this nation. So those folks have always been here, but they were given the kind of platforms to do what we saw happen. I don't even say that's the culmination, but it shows when the rallies of the madness wasn't enough. They had to come in and show up, and then somebody died. I don't know if they were a Trump person.
Yeah. Now we actually
somebody died today.
Yeah, we showed the video. We showed the video earlier of that woman, the gruesome video of her. She was shot in the neck. She did indeed die. I need to go to Lauren real quick. Lauren, this just in: Stephanie Grisham, who is the White House Chief of Staff and spokesperson for the First Lady. She also is former press secretary and communications director for Donald Trump. She has resigned effective immediately in the wake of these protests. Still no profiles encouraged from many Trump people. The reality is they stood by this man, allowing these things to happen. He leaves in 14 days when his term is up. But guess what? Lauren, these people, if you have worked for Trump and you are working for Trump, that stench will never go away. It will always be with them. Anybody, Black MAGA supporters, any of these people, that stench is staying with them forever. We will never forget.
As it should, because this is what they're doing, is they're leading an insurrection against our democracy. That's what they're doing. And in the case of these idiots, Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, they're doing it so that they can become famous and they can become the next Donald Trump. That's their big thing. It's embarrassing. It's crazy. It's dangerous. It's stupid. It's everything that you said it was. One of my best friends is a U.S. Capitol police officer on Senate chambers. He obviously has been texting me all day. And I have to tell you that, you know, there's no part of this really that should have surprised anybody. It's just like what you said, Roland, about the fact that we could see this building up. And, you know, to go to what Melanie said, we saw the beginning of this with the Tea Party in 2010, when Barack Obama took office and they sort of created this fake movement against him to stop his government. And then the next thing, of course, that happens is they created their own reality, really. And now it has come to this. They basically created this ruse that the election was somehow stolen from Donald Trump. So this represents a triumph of misinformation and deliberate disinformation, and the president lying. And finally, Twitter now is finally doing something. I mean, what takes so long for these things to happen? The guy has been inciting violence for 2 years. What takes so long for these things to happen? I have no idea. So I don't know what else to say. I just think that my phone is blowing up because I do have a lot of friends on Capitol Hill, and the Senate is going to come in at 8 o'clock. Apparently, Kathy McMorris Rogers, a Republican in the House, has decided to drop her objection to the certification of the election. What a novel idea. I guess violence has to be incited for you to figure this out. I mean, how stupid are these people that it takes this? And basically, those members are in fear just like everybody else. But the fact that it takes violence for us to get to this moment is incredible and embarrassing.
Rayshawn, this is an image right here where reporters were inside of the U.S. House chamber. Again, here are security personnel on the floor of the United States House, guns drawn, pointed at the door, barricade blocking the door to keep these thugs from walking into the U.S. House chamber. That is how significant this was that we saw. But not only that, this also, give me a second, there's another image that we saw. This is from the Twitter feed of John Lynch of WTRF. These folks, literally, these Trump people, had a noose, had a hangman's noose built as a part of their march. This is the messaging. This is the messaging that they were sending out to the country. This is what they were sending. Again, when you start talking about the craziness that we are seeing from these folks, it's unbelievable, Rayshawn. And the real question now is, Republicans, what are you going to do? And to Lauren's point, just because this one person said, "Oh, I'm dropping my objection," hell no. You will forever be remembered as being with these people. And so it's about to be a whole bunch of folks jumping ship because what they now realize, this ain't a game, baby. A person is dead. This is no longer a game. Now, let's see what's next. Rayshawn, go ahead.
I mean, Roland, you're exactly right. You know, racism is so American that when people protest racism, people think you're protesting America. And when people engage in racist acts, it's viewed as being normative. Some of the things that we heard from Tom and President Campbell, from Melanie, were spot on in terms of thinking about how Trump injected a steroid of hate into the bloodstream of America. Of course, it was there, but it was kind of laying dormant in various ways. And we've seen, not only over the past 4 years, but if people have said since Obama, irking up when we have nooses, when we have people storming the Capitol. I want people to think about this. Imagine if the people behind those doors of that image you just showed were Black. Imagine if they look like most of us. Imagine the bloodbath we will be seeing at the Capitol because of what happened. Because see, there are other images during Black Lives Matter protests of gates being up, of the U.S. Capitol Police and the National Guard standing guard of these buildings, putting property over people. But the minute they do it, we don't see that. There are a couple of things to note here. The work that I do on policing, I always talk about how bad apples come from rotten trees in policing. Well, these bad apple police officers come from the same rotten tree of these domestic terrorists. And mind you, they have built these trees and then strung our people up on these nooses that they put before the state capitol. And as our dead bodies fell, then the soil underneath became a part of us. That racism is embedded within the very soil and fabric of the United States of America. And there are a couple of stats people need to know here on why this is important. You and others highlighted this earlier. First, there was a Department of Homeland Security report. There have been several, but a couple of years ago, I testified on one along with the president of Brookings, General 4-star Marine General John Allen. And in that report, it talked about the way white nationalist groups, white supremacist groups were infiltrating police departments again. We've seen a lot of that, and what we saw today, we have to ask ourselves, as people said before, how do we see people climbing the Capitol walls? I mean, it looked like straight out of a movie. People climbing the Capitol walls, police officers letting them in, going through security that normally at times can look like Beirut. There had to be something going on, and this is the key point. If we look at Georgia and we look at changing demographics, Georgia is one of these. And I wrote about this, and Melanie Campbell essentially mentioned this. I wrote a piece at Brookings that said how Black Americans saved Biden and American democracy. If we look at the state of Georgia, the Black population since 1990 has increased from 1.8 million to about 3.5 million. That shift is a great migration back to the South. That's not just happening in Georgia, but it's happening in North Carolina, that's happening in Mississippi. And we're starting to see a spread. And we also have to be careful, particularly when white people do this. They're like, oh, we're the minority. Well, actually, when you break down the major racial groups in the United States, you're still well over 50% of the population. But that's the key point. The way they think about whiteness, it's about protecting white supremacy and whiteness versus everything else. And they can't handle the pluralistic society that we are moving toward as we get fair and equitable democracy and people being able to get to the polls.
This, Monique, I'm gonna go to Monique, I'm gonna go to Tom. Monique, this Senator Tammy Duckworth said as they were being rushed off of the floor, a quick thinking U.S. Senate staffer said, wait a minute, grab the electoral college votes. This is a photo of those actual votes. If it wasn't for that quick thinking staffer, these electoral college votes could have been destroyed when these white domestic terrorists stormed the floor of the U.S. Senate. Then we would truly have been in a constitutional crisis because we would not have had those actual signed votes. Your thoughts on the fact that Congress is going to reconvene to go through with this, and also Nancy Pelosi, she sent out a tweet. You sent this to me moments ago. Let me pull this tweet up from Nancy Pelosi, where she made it perfectly clear that Congress is going to do their job. This is what she said: today's shameful assault on our democracy, anointed at the highest level of government, must not deter us from our responsibility to the Constitution. Tonight, we will move forward with the certification of President-elect Joe Biden's election. Monique, go.
Yeah, if you're looking for the original gangster, that's her. So all this they trying to do, forget about it. She's another breed. And I was waiting for, because I've been hearing privately that they had committed to coming back tonight no matter what. I was waiting for something publicly to be said. So you see a few minutes ago, she did confirm the Constitution. You know, the Constitution requires them to do this today. And so they at least have to try, as long as it is still today, to get it done. And Senator Schumer is saying the same thing. Mitch, I'm sure wherever his bunker is, he's probably saying the same thing because he's done with all of this. So the fact that they're going to come back and try to meet and get as far as they can, and we'll see, right, how many of these congresspersons and senators who were part of the seditious behavior, who were part of the insurrection, will still be a part of it now that they've had to shelter in place, now that a woman has died, now that police officers have been injured and taken to the hospital. We'll see what they do. They're going to have an opportunity to begin again, but I am glad that they are going to stick to it because, as I said, I'm still wearing blue. You know, no matter what y'all did today, Georgia's blue now. Good luck. Georgia had voted for a Democratic president, and now has not one, but two Democratic senators. Yes, and John Lewis's seat is now filled by the first woman and first Black woman to ever hold the seat. This is the first Black man to hold. Listen, the youngest man in the Senate right now is coming out of Georgia. So it takes a fight. And there's gonna be blowback because this is Custer's last stand, everybody. Google it so you can understand what I'm saying. But they're still going down. This country is not what it was. And no, just your whiteness and you're over 50 gets you nothing by fiat. It isn't just because you exist anymore. And so people have to adjust. And adjusting and change requires disruption. And they did their best, but still.
I want to bring
President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Tom, today it was the race was called for John Ossoff here in Georgia. So John Ossoff, age 33, becomes a United States Senator, defeating Republican incumbent David Perdue. He will serve for a 6-year term. Pastor Raphael Warnock also beat Senator Kelly Loeffler. He will fill the remaining term of Johnny Isakson. He will be running for re-election in 2022. You broke down the numbers, and I really believe first of all of these things are all come together here, Tom, because what we're dealing with here, we're dealing with the changing face of America. We're dealing with America looking completely different than what it used to look like. And I go back to what I said. When I said in 2009, we were living in this age of white fear. There was a poll that was taken, and the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? This was shortly after President Barack Obama was inaugurated. Every group other than white America, a majority said yes. I saw that poll and I said, y'all buckle up. Glenn Beck, you heard him on Fox News. Obama hates white people. You saw the vicious attacks that Fox News and Fox Business did on him. Then they took it to a whole new level when Trump gets elected. You're seeing the people out there. You're seeing Lou Dobbs, and you're seeing Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, Peter Hegseth. You're seeing these people, Jeanine Pirro, align with him. Then you see One America News and then Newsmax go even further. These people have been yelling and screaming for the last 4 weeks. Oh no, he can still be president. It can still happen. They are denying anything, and what they're doing is they've been feeding the QAnon folks. You got that crazy woman right here from Georgia who said that, oh yeah, the election was stolen for Trump, but then she said that her election, when she's on the exact same ballot, him was good. So how is yours good, but then his was bad? You had this feeding into it, and so what you had is you've had, Tom, this hate that has been brewing. Mark Levin and Conservative Talk Radio and all of these people, folks who did not like Trump, but then they all flipped to Trump. You have folks like Michael Savage, who was savaging Donald Trump, saying how evil he was, and saying to the other Republicans, the other Conservative Talk Radio people, what the hell are y'all doing aligning with this guy? But it's the electoral map, Tom, that's fueling this anger and this rage, because they can't stand it that we now are using that power in that ballot box. And Tom, if they think what we just saw in Georgia was a fluke, they better think again when Stacey Abrams is on the ballot facing Brian Kemp if he wins the primary in 2022.
Amen. I think it's so important here to take a step back as you did, and to recognize how this happened in Georgia. And as my fellow panelists know, especially a former representative from Georgia, this wasn't something that happened overnight. It's based on organizing that has happened for years and years and years. But I want to focus on this year because I think it's a story that hasn't been told enough. When we think of when the pandemic began in this country, and all field organizing came to a screeching halt across this country, something that's generally to Democrats' advantage, to go out and knock doors, register voters. and it stopped. Voter registration basically stopped. And then to the extent that voter registration was happening, suddenly Republicans were out registering Democrats. And then what happened in late May when the video of George Floyd's murder was released and the demonstrations began. And I remembered that night, that it was a Thursday night at the end of May, I believe May 29th, when the demonstrations began in Atlanta. And Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and Killer Mike both went up on a press conference, and they made this plea and stressed the importance of voting, that enfranchisement is going to be our most powerful weapon in fighting back against again this cancer in our country. And so I looked the next day, because the primary was already happening in Georgia, early voting was happening, and I wanted to see what impact that would have. And what we saw is that literally the next day, the African American share of the early vote, the early in-person vote, doubled the next day. The youth vote doubled the next day. And we began to track that over the summer, because as we know, the Biden campaign made the decision to not go out and organize in person. But what we saw, wherever these Black Lives Matter demonstrations happened, voter registration surged. And when you look at the results, not just in Georgia, I can look at it and say that this result wouldn't have happened if that movement wasn't out there organizing, but also inspiring voters. And when you look at the exit polls in Georgia, we see a majority of voters in the general election in Georgia said they had a favorable opinion of the Black Lives Matter movement. And in fact, there was no question that was a better predictor of how someone would vote in that presidential election than their opinion of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so you can't separate the two. You're absolutely right, Roland, in terms of this all being connected, because you see the white privilege reaction to this, to the undeniable progress of demographics in organizing, in justice. And to be clear, this is only one step in the right direction. Now we have to get past the performative acts, and we need to see Congress actually make good on this. We need to see them renew the Voting Rights Act. We need to see them do so many things so that this doesn't become one moment in time. Because to be clear, Black voters delivered Georgia. They delivered these other key states. And so now Congress is going to need to act.
The thing that's interesting about what Tom just laid out there, Melanie, is we had all these Democrats. Oh my God, defund the police is going to kill us, is going to kill us. Guess what? Loeffler and Perdue and Mitch McConnell's pack, they attacked constantly. Ossoff and Warnock constantly would defund the police. It didn't work. This is what happens when you pay attention to the people out there. 112,000 people who did not vote in the November 3rd election, Melanie, voted in the runoff. Of the 112,000, 40% of them, 30% of them were 18 to 29.
Right.
Of the 40% of the 30%,
Black.
They were Black. So for all these people who said, oh, defund, and yes, I got great respect for Congressman Jim Clyburn, but he's wrong. He's wrong. The Democrats who lost because they did not run smart campaigns. And so if you're able to energize young people and can beat and go door to door and canvass, then you can win. Please, Carolyn Bordeaux won a seat in Congress, and they hit her with defund the police.
Right. And Roland, I that whole thing, you would think we weren't in the same year when some of the rhetoric came from the Democratic Party, from some folks in our party. I am a Democrat. And so it's like, did we just not go through the summer we went through? We know our people what the concerns are. It didn't just start. It just escalated based on what happened with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and then Breonna Taylor, and the killings just kept coming. So at the end of the day, we knew the policing, police reform, people, my thing is, you get caught up in semantics. You ought to be able to, as a candidate, be able to break down what you mean, right? And not get caught in that. And in reality, is a lot of the seats that they lost were going to be hard to keep anyway. I question what was going on with the DCCC. That's another question. Like, how did y'all not see? You know, get spending all this money. Y'all don't know where the beat is. So when you're pointing at you can't say great young people turned out and then, oh, we lost because young people talked about defunding the police. It's an oxymoron, in my opinion, right? So that's my opinion. But at the end of the day, these young people are turned on. What's powerful is they have connected, you know, that protest and being in the streets to the polls, and now looking at these next 100 days. That's what I'm loving, because I'm seeing a lot of young people who are in leadership, my sister Tamika and so many others who are connecting those dots and being able to see that. And so for the Democrats, that George Floyd Justice and Policing Act needs to be like a number one priority, because we voted across generations. And you know, Roland, the exit poll that we released right after the November election showed that Black men, Black women, young people, senior people, across the board, the number one issue continues to be for Black people. What do we want the next president to deal with and address? And that's systemic structural racism. That is criminal justice reform, police reform, and of course COVID, because it's killing us disproportionately. So that's what they need to focus on. And so now, with all that has happened and all of that hand wringing, look what happened again. Black people in Georgia showed up and showed out, and you just gave the data about the young people showed up. And so we got to make sure that we all do our part to demand that our friends accountable to what we voted for. And so don't come in there talking about all this bipartisan whatever. Do what you need to do to in that first 100 days to show that what we Black folks risk their lives. You're one of them, getting out there out in the middle of a pandemic. You know, I wish I could have been out there with you for the second half, but I couldn't make it out there personally because of my COVID experience. But at the end of the day, our people also, these organizers, these Black Lives Matter, seasoned civil rights organizations, all of our organizations risk our lives to turn this thing around. And so we gotta make sure that we hold them folks accountable. And now they've got the Senate, they got the House, they got the White House. Take care of business.
In just a second, the U.S. Senate is going to return supposedly at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to do a final round of comments with our panelists. I will start first with you, Rayshawn.
You know, I think when we look at the type of incidents that have happened today, what it really speaks to is that, again, this is what America is. And if we want to change it, and we just heard Melanie Campbell laying it out, I mean, the blame that has been put on progressives simply is not what the data show. Instead, what the data show is like what happened in Georgia. There are a lot of people who want changes. And make no mistake that what happened in Georgia, like what happened in Pennsylvania, like what happened in Michigan, Black people did that. We need to be very clear about that. But coupled with that, we're also white liberals and white progressives who want to see changes to what's happening, along with people who are Latinos and Asians. And if people really want to do that, they have seen their vote matter. And people should be tuning in to what's happening because, look, Tom said it, Melanie said it, other people said it. This is American history. People will be writing and talking about this forever. This moment lives on. It's up to us to decide what we want the next chapter to look like after we continue to deal with the division that we're dealing with right now.
Sean went out.
Lorna, are you there?
Oh, I'm there. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
There we go. Your final comment.
Sorry. I you know, I don't know what's left really to say other than that, you know, in 14 days we get rid of Donald Trump and hopefully he gets prosecuted. There's talk of the House members moving against other House members to expel them from Congress for staging and planning an insurrection on the U.S. House, which, as another panelist mentioned, we haven't seen since the war of 1812. I think that I'm game for that. I'm good with that. I don't know what McConnell's going to say. That nonsense that he said this morning, which really to me was not strong enough. He's got to go a lot further than that. These people have got to get some guts against Donald Trump and stop being afraid of Donald Trump. I have no idea why they're afraid of Donald Trump, quite frankly, or his supporters. People keep bringing up that there's 70 million people that voted for Well, there's 80 million that voted for Joe Biden. I mean, what about them? What about those people? So I can never completely understand why people are afraid of Donald Trump or why we continue with this ridiculous charade of allowing somebody to just completely lie to people and put out misinformation, set up an incredibly dangerous situation in our country, to say the least. So let's see what happens if people can find some guts tonight when they do return to session, which they are in a few minutes. Tomorrow's another day. I don't think it's a coincidence that, and it's already been brought up, but it is worth saying again, that Ossoff and Warnock end up winning, of course, last night and tying the Senate and throwing Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump's people out of power. And then by some coincidence, Donald Trump stages this ridiculousness today to take the attention off of all that and onto this madness. But let's see what happens next.
All right, then. Final comment from Tom Bonnier.
Thank you, Roland. Thanks for having me on. I just keep thinking about how politics in this country has a way of holding up a mirror to our true selves. And I think about today and the juxtaposition of a Black man and a Jewish man being named winners in Senate elections in Georgia and how uplifting that is. But at the same time, I think of Cori Bush, a woman who has been tear gassed at demonstrations, sitting in the United States Capitol and seeing these terrorists coming in and then seeing these terrorists walk out. And I think those two things are true reflections of where we are as a country and where we have to go. There's reason for hope, but there's so much work to be done.
Appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Monique Presley, you have the last word. Monique, are you muted? Or am I muted? All right, Monique, unmute yourself.
I did. Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah, we got you. Go ahead.
Great. I only have one thing to say. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did. It never will. Find out just what any people take quietly and submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. Georgia spoke, not quietly. They spoke in their words. The United States spoke with their words, and all of these words were our votes. But Frederick Douglass said, it will continue until we resist. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those they oppress. We're done. Okay, so the people who you saw today, that's not the story. I was out there in those streets after Donald Trump was elected. We had all our pink pussy hats on. There were 1 million of us. Only like 10 people were arrested. No property was destroyed. We knew how to protest our government and still maintain a democracy. These insurrectionists, these anarchists, these thugs, these criminals, ignore that. The government will meet tonight and they will do business. And then we will have President Joe Biden and we will have Vice President Kamala Harris. And we will have a majority with Madam President of the Senate in order to get business done. So whatever this mess was today, and it was horrible, I'm still encouraged. Y'all have a good night.
All right, then. We thank all of our panelists for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. For Scott and Dee, who also dropped earlier, thank you so very much. What I'm going to do is, Keenan, we can go ahead and drop our panelists. I'm going to say my final comments. I'm also trying to stretch this out a bit. Hopefully, we will be able to stick with this feed, waiting for the Senate to come back into session. This is the first session of the 117th Congress, where they were the counting of the Electoral College ballots. Folks, if you want to understand why this platform matters, it's because the things that we saw today, we told you this was coming. Told you this was coming. I've been saying it for years. Said it 11 years ago, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Said it. Broke this whole thing out. Folks were, oh, nah, we don't think so. Well, these are just games. No, they're not. The reason these platforms are important is because it prepares for you for what is coming next. It puts you in a position where you can then begin to understand how we are to battle. And that's what Roland Martin Unfiltered is all about. Earlier, I have no idea, again, why YouTube booted us. It could be when we showed the photo of the noose or the video of the woman who had been shot. But the reality is this, 16,500 people were watching us simultaneously live. That's the largest number we've ever had. We have more than 3,000 people who are watching us on Facebook. So we had nearly 20,000 people who are watching us simultaneously live. Folks, that is significant. And we're going to continue to build this. We're going to continue to build this and provide a platform for voices who ordinarily would not get called by these networks to be able to speak. See, the other thing is this here. We're not playing games with these people. We understand what's going on. We understand the power. In fact, let's go to the joint session of Congress. There should be Vice President Mike Pence is in the chair.
Of U.S. Capitol Police, federal, state, and local law enforcement. The violence was quelled. The Capitol is secured, and the people's work continues. We condemn the violence that took place here in the strongest possible terms. We grieve the loss of life in these hallowed halls, as well as the injuries suffered by those who defended our Capitol today. And we will always be grateful to the men and women who stayed at their posts to defend this historic place. To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house. And as we reconvene in this chamber, the world will again witness the resilience and strength of our democracy. For even in the wake of unprecedented violence and vandalism at this Capitol, the elected representatives of the people of the United States have assembled again on the very same day to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So may God bless the lost, the injured, and the heroes forged on this day. May God bless all who serve here and those who protect this place. And may God bless the United States of America. Let's get back to work.
Mr. President.
The Majority Leader.
I ask unanimous consent the Majority Leader and the Democratic Leader be allowed to speak, and that the time not count against 2 hours of debate in relation to the objection raised on the state of Arizona.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
On the state of the American people, the United States Senate will not be intimidated. We will not be kept out of this chamber by thugs, mobs, or threats. We will not bow to lawlessness or intimidation. we are back at our posts. We will discharge our duty under the Constitution and for our nation. And we're going to do it tonight. This afternoon, Congress began the process of honoring the will of the American people and counting the Electoral College votes. We've fulfilled this solemn duty every 4 years for more than 2 centuries. Whether our nation's been at war or at peace, under all manner of threats, even during an ongoing armed rebellion and the Civil War, the clockwork of our democracy has carried on. The United States and the United States Congress have faced down much greater threats than the unhinged crowd we saw today. We've never been deterred before and will be not deterred today. They tried to disrupt our democracy. They failed. They failed. They failed to attempt to obstruct the Congress. This failed insurrection only underscores how crucial the task before us is for our republic. Our nation was founded precisely so that the free choice of the American people is what shapes our self-government and determines the destiny of our nation. Not fear, not force, but the peaceful expression of the popular will. Now, we assembled this afternoon to count our citizens' votes and to formalize their choice of the next president. Now we're going to finish exactly what we started. We'll complete the process the right way, by the book. We'll follow our precedents, our laws, and our Constitution to the letter. And we will certify the winner of the 2020 presidential election. Criminal behavior will never dominate the United States Congress. This institution is resilient. Our democratic republic is strong. The American people deserve nothing less.
Democratic leader.
Mr. President. Mr. President, it is very, very difficult to put into words what has transpired today. I have never lived through or even imagined an experience like the one we have just witnessed in this Capitol. President Franklin Roosevelt set aside December 7th, 1941 as a day that will live in infamy. Unfortunately, we can now add January 6th, 2021 to that very short list of dates in American history that will live forever in infamy. This temple to democracy was desecrated, its windows smashed, our offices vandalized. The world saw Americans' elected officials hurriedly ushered out because they were in harm's way. The House and Senate floors were places of shelter until the evacuation was ordered, leaving rioters to stalk these hallowed halls. Lawmakers and our staffs, average citizens who love their country, serve it every day, feared for their lives. I understand that one woman was shot and tragically lost her life. We mourn her and feel for her friends and family. These images were projected to the world. Foreign embassies cabled home their home capitals to report the harrowing scenes at the very heart of our democracy. This will be a stain on our country, not so easily washed away. The final, terrible, indelible legacy of the 45th President of the United States, undoubtedly our worst. I want to be very clear. Those who perform these reprehensible acts cannot be called protesters. No, these were rioters and insurrectionists, goons and thugs, domestic terrorists. They do not represent America. They were a few thousand violent extremists who tried to take over the Capitol building and attack our democracy. They must and should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, hopefully by this administration, if not, certainly by the next. They should be provided no leniency. I want to thank the many of the Capitol Hill Police and Secret Service and local police who kept us safe today and worked to clear the Capitol and return it to its rightful owners and its rightful purpose. I want to thank the leaders, Democrat and Republican, House and Senate. It was Speaker Pelosi, Leader McConnell, Leader McCarthy, and myself who came together and decided that these thugs would not succeed, that we would finish the work of that our Constitution requires us to complete in the very legislative chambers of the House and Senate that were desecrated, but we know always belong to the people and do again tonight. But make no mistake, my friends, today's events did not happen spontaneously. The president who promoted conspiracy theories that motivated these thugs, the president who exhorted them to come to our nation's capital, egged them on. He hardly ever discourages violence and more often encourages it. This president bears a great deal of the blame. This mob was in good part President Trump's doing, incited by his words, his lies. This violence, in good part, his responsibility, his everlasting shame. Today's events certainly would not have happened without him. Now, January 6th will go down as one of the darkest days in recent American history. A final warning to our nation about the consequences of a demagogic president, the people who enable him, the captive media that parrots his lies, and the people who follow him as he attempts to push America to the brink of ruin. As we reconvene tonight, let us remember, in the end, all this mob has really accomplished is to delay our work by a few hours. We will resume our responsibilities now, and we will finish our task tonight. House and Senate chambers will be restored good as new, ready for legislating in short order. The counting of the electoral votes is our sacred duty. Democracy's roots in this nation are deep, they're strong, and they will not be undone, ever, by a group of thugs. Democracy will triumph, as it has for centuries. So to my fellow Americans who were shocked and appalled by the images on their televisions today, and who are worried about the future of this country, let me speak to you directly. The divisions in our country clearly run deep, but we are a resilient, forward-looking, and optimistic people, and we will begin the hard work of repairing this nation tonight, because here in America, we do hard things. In America, we always overcome our challenges. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
I yield 2 minutes to the Senator from Oklahoma, Senator Lankford.
Senator from Oklahoma.
The Vice President, you said things more eloquently than how we say it in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, we'd say something like, why in God's name would someone think attacking law enforcement and occupying the United States Capitol is the best way to show that you're right? Why would you do that? Rioters and thugs don't run the Capitol. We're the United States of America. We disagree on a lot of things, and we have a lot of spirited debate in this room. But we talk it out, and we honor each other, even in our disagreement. That person is not my enemy. That's my fellow American. And while we disagree on things and disagree strongly at times, we do not encourage what happened today, ever. I want to join my fellow senators in saying thank you to the Capitol Hill Police, the law enforcement, the National Guard, the Secret Service, who stood in harm's way. While we were here debating, they were pushing back. And I was literally interrupted mid-sentence speaking here because we were all unaware of what was happening right outside this room because of their faithfulness and because of what they have done. And I want to thank them. Ronald Reagan once said, "Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means." The peaceful people in my state in Oklahoma want their questions answered, but they don't want this, what happened today. They want to do the right thing, and they also want to do it the right way. They want to honor the constitutional process, but they also want to have debate about election security because they want to make sure it's right, which is why it's an important issue that still needs to be resolved. Transparency in government just doesn't seem like a bad idea. Obviously, the commission that we have asked for is not going to happen at this point, and I understand that. And we're headed towards tonight, towards the certification of Joe Biden to be the president of the United States. And we will work together in this body to be able to set a peaceful example for the days ahead. I yield the floor.
Democratic leader.
Senator from Nevada, Senator Cortez Masto.
Senator from Nevada.
Mr. Vice President.
And the Senate has resumed its debate on the Arizona electoral vote certification. You can watch all that live on C-SPAN 2. We're waiting for debating certification.
All right, folks, we are able to, because when C-SPAN goes live in the chambers, that is deemed to be fair use. And so that's one of the reasons why we are monitoring this here. And so we were showing you what was taking place right now in the United States Senate, and they're going to be continuing to certify this election. It's going to get done tonight. You saw Langford there speaking. He was one of the people who joined, who the Lincoln Project called the Jim Crow 12, who joined them in trying to challenge the electoral folks, the votes. So it's not like I really want to hear what he has to say after what took place here. During the show, I was going to actually play for you guys this particular video here. It was a great video that was put out by the folks at the Lincoln Project that really summed up these individuals here, who they call the Jim Crow Caucus. And what you're dealing with are people who want to challenge this. And matter of fact, I'm going to show a couple of videos. And so the Lincoln folks, they put this tweet up. We made this pre-election thinking that we'd never have to release it. After the events of today, we decided to post. And so let me go ahead and play this video. Check this video out that was done by the folks at the Lincoln Project.
At first, they seem ridiculous. The big egos, the bad ideas. Some of them seem almost comical. Not here, the people say. Yet men like these find their following because they know how to use hate and fear. Fear of foreigners, immigrants, and minorities. Of Jews, Muslims, Christians. They dismiss the experts, demonize the press, promise they alone can deliver better lives and brighter futures. If they could only be rid of the obstacles to that power. Eventually, enough people buy it. They hand the fate of the nation over madmen. But then suddenly, it's not so funny. The military deploys on the streets to protect the leader. Names appear on enemy lists. Opposition voices are silenced or imprisoned. The leader promises the right bloodlines will survive, and the wrong ones will be purged. It's an old story, one that could never happen here. The very idea is ridiculous, almost comical. There's no one dividing us, no one telling us who to hate, to put in cages, no one demonizing the press, dismissing the experts, no would-be savior claiming he alone can fix our problems if only the obstacles to power are removed. No one singling out the other, telling us what should become of them. No enemy lists, no threats of imprisonment. No one lashing out when their ego is threatened, demanding absolute loyalty and using the military to control the streets. No, it can't happen. Not here. We know too well how it begins, and it's always been up to us how it ends.
All right, folks, was in the Lincoln Project people said they did never release, but well, that's what they have here. I'm also show another video they put together. Donald Trump can't act like he didn't play any role in what took place today, because he did. He gave the order. Watch.
Boys, stand back and stand by. Many of you have traveled from all across the nation to be here, and I want to thank you for the extraordinary love. That's what it is. They could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election. I know how you feel. I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We love you. You're very special. That I will totally accept the results of this presidential election if I win.
Folks, that was Donald Trump. They included some of the comments that he made today that, and apparently Facebook has apparently released pulled that video. Again, here he was talking about, talking about, his usual nonsense, and that's what he was doing. There were some people out there, the U.S. Capitol Day, who were flying the Confederate flag, and you might remember this video. That was done that garnered 11 million views that speaks to anybody today carrying the Confederate flag. And it's amazing how Republicans have fallen in love with that flag. And yet, Donald vetoed the National Defense Authorization Act because it included the renaming of bases named after Confederate generals.
The men who followed this flag 150 years ago knew what it meant. Treason against their country. The death of the United States. America defeated the men who followed that flag. Those with honor surrendered and cast it aside forever. So why does it keep showing up today at events supporting Donald Trump? And why does he call the folks who carry it very fine people?
I think there's blame on both sides, but you also had people that were very fine people.
What does it say that they're all in for Trump? What does it say that he won't condemn a flag of hate, division, and losers? For us, it says this is a time for choosing America or Trump.
Folks, all of this is important because we have to understand what is going on here. You heard me use the phrase the Jim Crow caucus. That is a phrase that has been used to describe these Trump MAGA people who are the ones who led to today, the people who wanted to block the electors from being certified. They are indeed traitors to the country. They are indeed folks who should be prosecuted for sedition because they don't want to count the votes of Black people. Watch this.
Jim Crow Caucus is here, and their racist agenda is front and center. Its leaders, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Marsha Blackburn, Kevin McCarthy, a dozen Republicans in the Senate, and 140 in the House want to overturn the votes of tens of millions of African Americans, to throw them out, to count white votes in white counties, but to eliminate Black votes in cities. The votes they want to strike down are from places like Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee. Generations fought and died for civil rights, with no right held higher or earned with more blood and pain than the right to vote. But to the Jim Crow Republicans, Black votes don't matter any more than Black lives. Remember their faces, remember their names, remember their agenda.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So folks, we have been monitoring all of this. We have been looking at this, focusing on this, and we need to understand exactly what is going on. And one of the people who we should never forget, those of you who are in Missouri, you should pay attention to Josh Hawley. This is the man who was on Fox News, on multiple networks, saying he was going to lead this effort to challenge what happened today in the United States Senate. Blood is on his hands, the hands of Josh Hawley, the U.S. Senator from Missouri.
Hey, Senator Hawley. Traitor. There's a word you may have heard of. Scumbag. Snake. Criminal. Sedition. We don't use that word much these days. We haven't had to. Making treason great. But you and your pals are doing your best to bring the word back with a seditious plot. Band of fools.
It's a move that will delight President Trump and rankle Republican leadership.
Hawley says he will object when Congress convenes to certify the Electoral College vote next week.
Overturning a free and fair election to keep a defeated president in office illegally? For that loser. That looks really bad, Senator. Perverted. Rather rule in a dictatorship than serve in a democracy, Josh?
Wow.
Serve either way, Josh.
Goodbye, folks.
It seems your fancy education didn't teach you the difference between loyalty and fealty. Ask you, sir. Maybe if you'd actually served your country, it would make sense. Why didn't you? You shouldn't be in the U.S. Senate. You're a disgrace. You should be in jail.
All right, folks, he is from Missouri. And speaking of Missouri, Congresswoman Cori Bush, who was elected to Congress, she has made it clear she is not going to be standing by and just watching what actually took place here. What she said is, she said these folks need to be removed from Congress. That's what she laid out. And in fact, she said she is going to introduce a bill. Let me pull the tweet up, please, so I can show you to where she lays out exactly what she wants to do. You see this tweet here. I'm calling for the removal of every GOP member involved in today's coup. If you're with me, sign your name to my petition to send them a message that you will not stand for their treason. Hold the GOP accountable for the coup attempt. It's GOPcoup.com. It's GOPcoup.com. Now, what she also did was she posted that, and it's not just her as well. I'm going to pull it up here. Ilhan Omar, she also had posted that she also wants to take action against these Republicans. And this is what she tweeted 3 hours ago. This is the tweet right here. I am drawing up articles of impeachment. Donald J. Trump should be impeached by the House of Representatives and removed from office by the United States Senate. We can't allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we will need to fulfill our oath. That right there is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, Minneapolis, and so from Minnesota. So, folks, that's what you see going on right here. There are police who are all around, armed guards stationed inside of the United States Capitol, standing outside of the chambers to protect those particular members. The folks in the folks who are in the U.S. House. They are at an undisclosed location. They too are going to be meeting as well. And so we're going to be following that. And so what I'm going to do is in a moment, I'm going to return to what's taking place on the floor of the United States Senate, where members are still also speaking and talking about what's happening with the electors. Let's go right to the floor of the United States Senate.
Was the vice president about 20 minutes ago when the Senate came back in session, according to the vice president's press secretary, Devin O'Malley. Vice President Mike Pence has returned to the Senate. He never left the Capitol. The vice president was in regular contact with House and Senate leadership, Capitol Police, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Defense to facilitate efforts to secure the Capitol and reconvene Congress. And now we will finish the people's business. That's a live shot of the Capitol. You can see the barriers. Usually there are people walking back and forth there. This is the east front of the Capitol. The Senate is on your far right. The House chamber is down on the far left. And we're waiting for the House to come back into session. The Senate, though, you can watch live on C-SPAN 2. Lauren in Grapeland, Texas, please go ahead and make your comment about the events of today.
Hello.
All right, folks. So we are again looking at what's happening on the floor there of the U.S. Senate. That they were in session, and then the folks at C-SPAN actually bailed out of that session. And so we are, if they go back, we'll go live to them just to understand the craziness that we are seeing take place. There's Anthony was just telling me there's a West Virginia senator. His name is Derek Evans. This idiot literally posted a video of himself participating in the storming of the Capitol. Newly elected to the West Virginia House. But guess what, y'all? Little Derek has decided, he's been posting videos of him storming the U.S. Capitol. Now Derek has decided to delete those videos, to delete the videos here. And so here is, this is a cell phone recording of a portion of a now, so go to my phone. This is a cell phone portion of a video where he was recording himself, posted on Facebook of them storming the Capitol. Come on, Derek, be a big boy. Why are you now deleting your videos? Could it be that you realize you look like a complete ass storming the Capitol? That could be it. And so we just wanted to show you all that. Look, y'all, you've got some crazy folks. So here's another video here. Go ahead and pull the sound of Derek Evans. Listen to this.
House! Our house! Our house! We're at the door now. This cop's on the inside stopping us now. Our house! Trump! 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 Woo! We did it! Woo! We're in! We're in! Derek Evans is in the Capitol! Let's go!
When you have thugs who are following behind Donald Trump, that's how they operate. That's how they are in action. All right, folks, that is it for. Let me do this here. My final comments there. This is why we create this platform, folks, and so we need your support for us to continue to do what we do. At one point, right now, there are 7,753 of you watching on YouTube. There are 1,600 of you who are watching us right now on Facebook, and the 98 watching on Periscope. Periscope is ending March 31st, 2021. We had 16,500 people watching us live on YouTube. But apparently, because we showed the video of the woman who was shot, as well as the noose that was hanging at the U.S. Capitol, they ended our live video. They said that it was inappropriate for children. I don't understand what that's about because the show's not for children. It's a news show. And it's a news show that children should also be aware. That's why it's a news show. And so this is what I need our followers to understand. We have signed a contract to build out our own OTT channels. That means that we would have our own OTT channel that will be on Roku, it'll be on Apple TV, it'll be on Amazon Fire Stick, it will be on Twitch, and it will be able to be on our own website as well. That, folks, is $145,000 a year. I told you I'm very transparent with you in terms of what we are doing. $145,000 a year. Why is that important? Because if we have our own OTT channel, YouTube can't cut us off. Well, YouTube can cut us off, but we don't go away. Our channel can carry that sort of content. We appreciate a partnership with YouTube, but the reality is we need to have the freedom and the flexibility to cover the news that we see fit and not be in a situation where 16,500 of you are watching us live on YouTube. 3,000 at the same time, 3,000 of you are watching us on Facebook at the very same time, and both of those feeds were stopped. We went from 3,000 people on Facebook and it went down to 678. And so when you hear me talk about joining our Bring the Funk fan club, the number is very simple. If 20,000 of our followers contribute an average of $50 each, that's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That's $1 million. That allows for us to be able to afford to have our own OTT channels, so we are not stopped anywhere at all. It allows for us to hire additional staff, like let's say a congressional correspondent, allows for us to be able to do more things like this where we're here in Atlanta. On March 21st, there's going to be the St. Louis mayoral election. We want to be in St. Louis in February and March covering that. In June is likely going to be the elections in Virginia, a new governor. African Americans are running for governor and lieutenant governor. We want to travel all across the state to cover that. And so your support makes it possible, those of you who join us on YouTube, but you can also join us directly as opposed to going through YouTube, where we have to share the revenue with them. If you join us directly, we get the full 100% benefit of that. And so I appreciate those of you who are YouTube members, but I would encourage you to actually join us directly via Cash App, Square, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. That way we get the full 100% of your support, and we're not sharing 45% with YouTube. So you can support us. And again, what our goal is very simple, is to raise these dollars in order for us to provide the kind of news and perspective that you're not going to get anywhere else. Folks, these black media folks, the rest of them, they weren't live tonight. They didn't have the kind of show that we did. And understand, my staff wasn't there. Literally, they were not in the control room because we're located right there at Black Lives Matter Plaza. I wanted them to be safe. And so we did the Tonight Show completely virtual. That's why we do what we do. The quality product that we put on, we think is also tops. When you see this show, when you see the guests that we pull in, when you see the quality of our graphics, when you see what we do, we put on a quality show. And so your support absolutely matters. And so what I really want us to understand is I want our people to understand that we can actually build this, and we don't have to ask anybody's permission to do so. So if you take let's just do some math here real quick here. If you take the 7,700 people who are watching right now, on YouTube, and the 1,400 people who are watching us right now on Facebook. So let me just, if I take 7,700 with the 1,400 people who are on Facebook, and I take the 100 people who are on Periscope, I'm doing 9,200 people. Let's say those 9,200 people gave us an average of $50. That's $460,000. That means we can completely pay for the OTT channel. And just so y'all know, the OTT channel that we want to have will actually have a 24-hour live stream. So when you turn on Roku, we will be 24 hours. All the content that we have, the rallies that we cover, the events that we have, we will be able to put together an entire 24-hour channel, like the Young Turks, like CNN and MSNBC. It will also allow for us to develop new shows as well. And so we are literally in the middle of doing that. We are building something, folks, that is tremendous here, and we need your support. So please support us at Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, paypal.me/RM Unfiltered, venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You can also support us with Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. If you want to use a credit card, use Square by going to Roland, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. If you want to send a money order, that's great. You can do so by sending it to 16 to New Vision Media, NU Vision Media Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. And so, folks, we are building something something significant here, and that's why we need your support. So we thank you so very much. We thank you for being with us. We thank the 16,500 earlier. 8,000 of you came back, and so we're just going to keep building this thing out, folks, and grow this show from a show to a network. So thank you so very much. Thank my staff for operating on the fly, for being able to change quite quickly. That is what we do as well. And so, as I said, look, I don't have millionaires and billionaires who are supporting our show. I don't have folks who are writing those checks. You, the people, are making it possible. You, the people, are making it possible, and we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. The folks at C-SPAN, they had cut away a little bit earlier, and then and here I was about to dip out as well, but I'm told that Cory Booker is now speaking, and I am trying to get out of this page here. Give me 1 second, folks. If I can quickly catch Cory speaking on the floor of the United States Senate, just give me a second. I want to be able to do that. So let's see here. If C-SPAN would allow me to do so. I want to catch his comments. Let's go to it and give me 5 seconds. This will be the last thing that we here we go. Go.
Off of the shame of conspiracy theories as opposed to doing the incalculably valuable, patriotic thing to speak truth to our nation. Our democracy is wounded, and I saw it when I saw pictures of yet another insurgency, of a flag of another group of Americans who tried to challenge our nation. I saw the flag of the Confederacy there. What will we do? How will we confront this shame? How will we confront this dark second time in American history? I pray that we remember a Georgian. His words, all I can say is we must in spirit join together like those Georgians on a bridge called the Edmund Pettus, who joined hands, who were called threats to our democracy, who were called outrageous epithets when they sought to expand our democracy, to save it and to heal it, when they joined arm in arm and said what we should say now, commit ourselves to that ideal, that together we shall overcome.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from Nebraska, Senator Sass.
Senator from Nebraska.
Mr. President, thank you. And Mr. Vice President, let me just say before I begin, thank you for the way you have fulfilled your constitutional duties and your oath of office today. It obviously hasn't been easy. Colleagues, today has been ugly. And when I came to the floor this morning, I planned to talk about the lesson of 1801, because I'm kind of a history nerd. And I wanted to celebrate the glories of the peaceful transition of power across our nation's history. It feels a little naive now to talk about ways that American civics might be something that could unite us and bring us back together. 1801 blew everybody's mind all over the world, by the way. John Adams loses to Thomas Jefferson, and Adams willingly leaves the executive mansion and moves back to Massachusetts, and Jefferson peacefully assumes power. And people all over Europe said, that must be fake news. Those must be bad reports. There's no way any executive would ever willingly lay down power. And yet Adams, in defeat, did something glorious to give all of us a gift. I wanted to celebrate that, and it feels a little bit harder now. This building has been desecrated. Blood has been spilled in the hallways. I was with octogenarian members of this chamber that needed to have troops and police stabilize them to get down the stairs at a time when a lot of our staffs were panicked and under their desks and not knowing what was going to happen to them. It was ugly today. But you know what? It turns out that when something's ugly, talking about beauty isn't just permissible. Talking about beauty is obligatory in a time like that. Why? Why would we talk about beauty after the ugliness of today? Because our kids need to know that this isn't what America is. What happened today isn't what America is. They've been given a glorious inheritance. This is the 59th presidential election. If the vice president wasn't the chair and if the president pro tem was, I'd have made some joke that Chuck Grassley has voted in 2/3 of those 59 presidential elections. He's laughing. It's not as good as Hit Dear, Dear Dead, but it's still got a Grassley laugh. I don't think we want to tell the Americans that come after us that this republic is broken, this is a banana republic, that our institutions can't be trusted. I don't think we want that. We don't want that in this body. We don't want that in our hometowns. I don't think we want to tell our kids that America's best days are behind us, because it's not true. That's not who we are. America isn't Hatfield's and McCoy's blood feud forever. America's a union. There's a lot that's broken in this country, but not anything that's so big that the American people can't rebuild it, that freedom and community and entrepreneurial effort and that neighborhoods can't rebuild. Nothing that's broken is so big that we can't fix it. Generations of our forefathers and our foremothers, probably not a word, our ancestors, have spilled blood to defend the glories of this republic. Why would they do that? Because America is the most exceptional nation in the history of the world, and because the Constitution is the greatest political document that's ever been written. Most governments in the past have said might makes right, and we saw some of that hooligan nuttery today. Might makes right. No, it doesn't. God gives us rights by nature, and government is just our shared project to secure those rights. America has always been about what we choose to do together, the way we reaffirm our constitutional system. We've got some governmental tasks, and we all in this body could do better at those governmental tasks, but the heart of America is not government. The center of America is not Washington, D.C. The center of America is the neighborhoods where 330 million Americans are raising their kids and trying to put food on the table and trying to love their neighbor. That's the center of America. We're not supposed to be the most important people in America. We're supposed to be servant leaders who try to maintain a framework for ordered liberty so that there's a structure that back home where they live, they can get from the silver frame of structure and order to the golden apple at the center, as Washington would have said it, which is the things that they build together. The places where they coach Little League, the places where they invite people to synagogue or church. Sometimes the big things we do together are governmental, like kicking Hitler's ass or like going to the moon. Sometimes there is governmental stuff, but the heart of America is about places where moms and dads are raising kids, and we're supposed to serve them by maintaining order and by rejecting violence. You can't do big things like that if you hate your neighbors. You can't do big things together as Americans if you think other Americans are the enemy. Look, there's a lot of uncertainty about the future. I get it. There's a lot that does need to be rebuilt. But if you're angry, I want to beg you, don't let the screamers who monetize hate have the final word. Don't let nihilists become your drug dealers. There are some who want to burn it all down. We met some of them today, but they aren't going to win. Don't let them be your prophets. Instead, organize, persuade, but most importantly, love your neighbor. Visit the widower down the street who's lonely and doesn't want to tell anybody that his wife died and he doesn't have a lot of friends. Shovel somebody's neighbor. Shovel somebody's driveway. You can't hate somebody who just shoveled your driveway. The heart of life is about community and neighborhood, and we're supposed to be servant leaders. The constitutional system is still the greatest order for any government ever, and it's our job to steward it and protect it. Let's remember that today when we vote.
Democratic leader.
Senator Durbin.
Senator from Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. In March of 1861, a Springfield lawyer caught a train to Washington. His name was Abraham Lincoln. It wasn't his first trip here. He'd served as a congressman 15 years before, and he returned in the beginning of the Civil War to serve as president. It was a different place than he knew it as congressman. In 15 years, it had changed a lot. The Spriggs boarding house across the street, which is now the Library of Congress, was gone. And this building was changing. Big changes. They're building a dome on the Capitol. But they were also in the earliest days of a war, and President Lincoln was counseled, stop building the dome. It costs too much money, and we can't spend any more time on it. And he said, no, we're going to build that dome and we're going to finish it. That dome and this building will be a symbol of this country that will survive this Civil War and come back strong. So they built the dome, they won the war, and since those days, that dome and this building have been a symbol to this country, a symbol of unity and of hope. Tourists come through here before COVID-19 by the tens of thousands. And if you've ever noticed their tours, they're often shushed. People are saying, show some respect for this building. We know this building in the Rotunda as a place where some of the greatest American heroes of both political parties lie in state, and we go there to honor them. We know this building because we work here. We enact laws here that change America. We gather for State of the Union messages from presidents and honor the people in the gallery. This is a special place. This is a sacred place. But this sacred place was desecrated by a mob today on our watch. This temple to democracy was defiled by thugs who roamed the halls and sat in that chair, Mr. Vice President, the one that you vacated at 2:15 this afternoon, sat and posed for pictures, those who were roaming around this chamber. What brought this on? Did this mob spring spontaneously from America? No. This mob was invited to come to Washington on this day by this president for one reason, because he knew the Electoral College vote was going to be counted this day. He wanted this mob to disrupt the constitutional process which we are part of. This mob was inspired by a president who cannot accept defeat. If you wonder whether I'm going too far in what I say, just read the transcript with the Secretary of State from Georgia and listen to this president's wild conspiracy theories, one after the other, swatted down by that Republican elected official and his attorney as having no basis in fact. This president begs, he coaxes, he even threatens that Secretary of State to find the votes he needs. In any other venue, that would be a simple, obvious crime. The lengths he will go to are obvious. The Texas senator says to us, well, many people still agree with him, you know, when it gets down to the bottom line. Many people have fallen for this presidential position that it must have been a rigged election if I lost. Well, I would say that after we've lost count, 57 lawsuits, 62 lawsuits, I've heard so many numbers, after 90 different judges, after this president took his case, the best he could put together, to the highest court in the land across the street, where he has personally chosen 3 justices on the Supreme Court, I say to the senator from Texas, you know much more about that court than I do. I don't believe they let that paper that he sent up there even hit the desk before they laughed it out of the court. And that's the best he had to offer. No evidence whatsoever of this rigged election and this fraudulence. The senator from Texas says, we just want to create a little commission. 10 days, we're going to audit all the states, particularly the ones in contention here, and find out what actually occurred. And it really draws its parallel in 1876, Hayes and Tilden. Don't forget what that commission, that so-called political compromise, achieved. It was not just some ordinary governmental commission. It was a commission that killed Reconstruction, that established Jim Crow, that even after a civil war which tore this nation apart, it re-enslaved African Americans. And it was a commission that invited the voter suppression we are still fighting today in America. Let me close by saying this. The vote we're going to have here is a clear choice of whether we are going to feed the beast of ignorance or we are going to tell the truth to the American people. We saw that beast today roaming the halls. Let's not invite it back.
Majority Leader.
President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the Senator from Kansas, Senator Marshall.
Senator from Kansas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Freedom of speech and the freedom to protest are provided in our Constitution. And while I share the same frustration many Americans have over the presidential election, the violence and mob rule which occurred at the U.S. Capitol today and across the country over the past year are unacceptable, and I condemn them at the highest level. And like all of us in the chamber, I'm thankful for the heroic law enforcement officers who worked feverishly to restore order so that we get back to the electoral certification process. During my 29-year career as an obstetrician and gynecologist, too often I had to sit down with patients and give them a very bad diagnosis. It might have been a young mother of 3 who I delivered all 3 of her babies, now with metastatic breast cancer, or perhaps another woman with advanced cervical or ovarian cancer, all with a very challenging prognosis. But before I sat down with each one of those patients, I carefully reviewed all their labs, their x-rays, and their pathology to make sure I had the facts straight. But at the end of the day, my final recommendation was always going to be a recommendation from my heart. I want my fellow Kansans and all Americans to know that I've given as much consideration and thought surrounding the issue objecting to a state's electoral college votes as I did considering the treatment plan for a serious health concern. And today's decision, once again, is from my heart. Mr. President, I rise today to restore integrity to our republic. And I rise to join the many of our colleagues who are all concerned for current and future generations. We must restore faith and confidence in one of our republic's most hallowed patriotic duties, voting. There is no question our U.S. Constitution empowers state legislatures to execute free, legal, and fair elections. Unfortunately, in several states, the clear authority of those state legislatures to determine the rules for voting were usurped by governors, secretaries of states, and activist courts. Our laws and Constitution should always be followed, especially in a time of crisis. I don't rise and undo a state's legally obtained electoral college votes. Rather, I rise in hopes of improving the integrity of the ballot to hold states accountable to the time-proven constitutional system of the electoral college. This is why I urge the formation of an electoral commission to give constructive suggestions and recommendations that states can make to make our elections once again safe, free, and fair after a year of jarring irregularities. We must and will have a peaceful transition to power. To all my fellow Americans, I have no doubt that our republic can grow stronger through this difficult day. May God bless this great republic. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back.
Democratic Leader.
Senator Duckworth.
Senator from Illinois.
President, in 2004, I packed up my rucksack, laced up my boots, and deployed to Iraq, ready to sacrifice whatever was asked of me, all because I love this nation, willing to sacrifice my life if needed. Because I believe in the sanctity of our electoral system, which had declared George W. Bush my commander-in-chief. I earned my wounds, proudly fighting in a war I did not support, on the orders of a president I did not vote for. Because I believed in, and I still do believe in, the values of our nation. Because I believe in a government of, by, and for the people, where voters choose who leads them, not the other way around. I have spent my entire adult life defending our democracy, but I never thought it would be necessary to defend it from an attempted violent overthrow in our nation's own Capitol building. Well, I refuse to let anyone intent on instigating chaos or inciting violence deter me from carrying out my constitutional duties. You know, when my Army buddies and I raised our right hands, when the 45,000 troops in Arizona raised their right hands and swore to protect and defend the Constitution, we did not qualify our oath by saying that we'd follow orders only when the commander-in-chief was someone whose election we were happy with. Just like when every senator in this chamber was sworn into office, we didn't mutter under our breath that we discharge our duties only when it served our political interests or helped us to avoid the wrath of a petty, insecure, wannabe tin pot dictator on the precipice of losing power and relevance. No, there is no ambiguity here. Joe Biden won the election with a record number of votes. Republican officials nationwide confirmed those results, including in Arizona, as has judge after Trump-appointed judge. Even Trump's attorney general admitted that the United States Department of Justice had not found widespread fraud that would have affected the outcome. Yet still, many of my Republican colleagues are asking us to ignore all of that. With no evidence of their own, they're asking us to ignore court rulings, ignore Republican election officials, and even worse, ignore the will of the people across this vast, great nation. By trying to overturn this election, they are placing more trust in Reddit conspiracy theories over the Constitution, proving that appeasing Trump is more important to them than protecting the most basic tenet of our republic, the adherence to free and fair elections. There's one thing I know, it's that my troops didn't sign up to defend our democracy in war zones thousands of miles away, only to watch it crumble in these hallowed halls here at home. Yet that is what this effort amounts to, an attempt to subvert our democracy, and in the process, it is threatening what makes America American. Because in this country, the power of the people has always mattered more than the people in power. That is the ideal that this nation was founded upon. That is why a few patriots threw some tea in Boston Harbor, why Washington crossed the Delaware, why suffragists were arrested a century ago, and why my friend John Lewis crossed that bridge in Selma in 1965. It is why millions spent a Tuesday in November standing in line, braving a pandemic to make their voices heard. Listen, this administration has always had an adversarial relationship with the truth. Trump always cries conspiracy, always foments chaos whenever something doesn't go his way. But today, we here in this chamber have the opportunity to prove that here in this country, truth matters, that right matters, that the will of the people matters more than the whims of any single powerful individual. I have no tea to throw in Boston Harbor tonight, and I regret that I have no rucksack to pack for my country, no Black Hawk to pilot, nor am I asking for any grand gesture from my Republican colleagues. All that I'm asking of you is to reflect on the oaths that you have sworn, on the damage done to our union today, and on the sacrifices made by those who've given so much to this nation. From the service members at Fort Huachuca and Marine Corps Air Station Yuma to the marchers who bent America's moral arc a bit more towards justice with every single step that they took, every bridge that they crossed, then ask yourself whether the democracy they were willing to bleed for, the country that each of us in this chamber has sworn to defend, is worth damaging in order to protect the porcelain ego of a man who treats the Constitution as if it were little more than a yellowing piece of paper? I think we all know the right answer.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the senator from Kentucky, Senator Paul.
Senator from Kentucky.
I wrote a speech for today. I was planning to say that I fear the chaos of establishing a precedent that Congress can overturn elections. Boy, was I right. Chaos, anarchy. The violence today was wrong and un-American. The vote we are about to cast is incredibly important. Now more than ever, the question is, should Congress override the certified results from the states and nullify the states' rights to conduct elections? The vote today is not a protest. The vote today is literally to overturn elections. We've been told that this is a protest. Well, this is about an electoral commission. No, it's not. It's about whether to seat the electors that have been certified by a state. It's not about an electoral commission. It's not about a protest. You can go outside if you want to protest. This is about overturning a state certified election. If you vote to overturn these elections, wouldn't it be the opposite of what states' rights Republicans have always advocated for? This would doom the Electoral College forever. It was never intended by our founders that Congress have the power to overturn state certified elections. My oath to the Constitution doesn't allow me to disobey the law. I can't vote to overturn the verdict of states. Such a vote would be to overturn everything held dear by those of us who support the rights of states in this great system of federalism that was bequeathed to us by our founders. The Electoral College was created to devolve the power of selecting presidential electors to the states. The Electoral College is, without question, an inseparable friend to those who believe that every American across our vast country deserves to be heard. If Congress were to give the power to overturn the state's election, what terrible chaos would ensue every 4 years? Imagine the furor against the Electoral College if Congress becomes a forum to overturn states' Electoral College slates. It's one thing to be angry. It's another to focus one's anger in constructive ways. That hasn't happened today, to say the least. We simply cannot destroy the Constitution, our laws, and the Electoral College in the process. I hope as the nation's anger cools, we can channel that energy into essential electoral reforms at the state level. America's admired around the world for our free elections. We absolutely must fix this mess and restore confidence and integrity to our elections. We must.
Democratic Leader.
Senator from Virginia, Senator Warner.
Senator from Virginia.
Mr. President, I think like most of us, I'm still pretty reeling from what happened today. What I was going to talk about was the work that I'm most proud of since I've been here, with my good friend Richard Burr and all the members of the Intelligence Committee, about a multi-year report we did into foreign interference in our elections. Probably our top recommendation of that 5-volume bipartisan report was that any official or candidate should use restraint and caution when questioning results of our elections. Because when you do so, you often carry out the goals of our foreign adversaries. Use caution because whether knowingly or unknowingly, and whether that adversary is in Russia or China or Iran, their goals are pretty simple. They want to make it appear to Americans, to folks around the world, to their own people, that there's nothing special about American democracy. I was going to try in a feeble way to maybe reach some of the rhetorical heights of Ben Sass, and I knew I couldn't do that. So instead, I know I'm violating rules here. Today's the day for violating rules. So this is a photo that appears today on one of the most prominent German newspapers. You don't need to draw up it. You can draw up photos from any newspaper or any television feed anywhere across the world. And what is this photo of? It's of thugs in the halls of this Capitol, diminishing everything we say we believe in this democracy. And when you look at those images, realize those images are priceless for our adversaries. God willing, tonight, in an overwhelming way, we're going to take a small step in a bipartisan way to start restoring that trust of our people and hopefully the billions of people around the world who believe in that notion of American democracy. Remember, these images will still endure. I yield back.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I yield up to 5 minutes to the senator from Missouri, Senator Hawley.
Senator from Missouri.
Mr. President, thank you. I want to begin this evening by saying thank you to the men and women of the Capitol Hill Police, the armed, the National Guardsmen, the Metropolitan Police, and others who came to this Capitol, who put their lives on the line to protect everyone here working inside of it. And I want to thank law enforcement all across this country, in my home state of Missouri and everywhere else, who do that day in and day out. And I just want to acknowledge that when it comes to violence, this has been a terrible year in America this last year. We've seen a lot of violence against law enforcement, and today we saw it here in the capital of the United States. And in this country, in the United States of America, we cannot say emphatically enough, violence is not how you achieve change. Violence is not how you achieve something better. Our Constitution was built and put into place so that there would be, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, no appeal from ballots to bullets, which is what we saw, unfortunately, attempted tonight. There is no place for that in the United States of America. And that's why I submit to my colleagues that what we're doing here tonight is actually very important. Because for those who have concerns about the integrity of our elections, those who have concerns about what happened in November, this is the appropriate means. This is the lawful place where those objections and concerns should be heard. This is the forum that the law provides for, our laws provide for those concerns to be registered, not through violence, not by appealing from ballots to bullets, but here in this lawful process. And so to those who say that this is just a formality today, an antique ceremony that we've engaged in for a couple of hundred years, I can't say that I agree. I can't say that our precedents suggest that. I actually think it's very vital what we do. The opportunity to be heard, to register objections is very vital, because this is the place where those objections are to be heard and dealt with, debated, and finally resolved in this lawful means, peacefully, without violence, without attacks, without bullets. And so, Mr. President, let me just say now briefly, in lieu of speaking about it later, a word about Pennsylvania, which is a state that I have been focused on, objected to, as an example of why people are concerned, millions of Americans concerned about our election integrity. The state of Pennsylvania, quite apart from allegations of any fraud, you have a state constitution that has been interpreted for over a century to say that there is no mail-in balloting permitted except for in very narrow circumstances that's also provided for in the law. And yet, last year, Pennsylvania elected officials passed a whole new law that allows universal mail-in balloting, and did it irregardless of what the Pennsylvania Constitution said. And then when Pennsylvania citizens tried to go and be heard on this subject before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, they were dismissed on grounds of procedure, timeliness, in violation of that Supreme Court's own precedent. So the merits of the case have never been heard. The constitutionality of the statute actually has never been defended. I'm not aware of any court that has passed on its constitutionality. Actually, I'm not aware of anybody who's defended the constitutionality. And this was the statute that governed this last election, in which there are over 2.5 million mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. This is my point, that this is the forum The Pennsylvania Supreme Court hasn't heard the case. There's no other court to go to hear the case in the state. And so this is the appropriate place for these concerns to be raised, which is why I have raised them here today. And I hope that this body will not miss the opportunity to take affirmative action to address the concerns of so many millions of Americans, to say to millions of Americans tonight that violence is never warranted, that violence will not be tolerated, that those who engage in it will be prosecuted, but that this body will act to address the concerns of all Americans across the country. We do need an investigation into irregularities, fraud. We do need a way forward together. We need election security reforms. I bet my friends on the other side of the aisle don't disagree with that. We need to find a way to move forward on that together so that the American people from both parties, all walks of life, can have confidence in their elections and that we can arrange ourselves under the rule of law that we share together. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Democratic leader.
Senator from Pennsylvania, Mr. Casey.
Senator from Pennsylvania.
I rise tonight to defend the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to defend the more than 6.9 million voters who voted in this election, and to condemn in the strongest possible terms this attempt to disenfranchise the voters of Pennsylvania based upon a lie, a falsehood. That same lie sowed the seeds of today's violence and today's lawlessness here in the Capitol. One of my constituents, Susan from the Lehigh Valley, the community of our state where Senator Toomey lives, recently wrote to my office and perhaps said it best. She said, and I quote, "We cannot allow anybody to overturn the legal votes of the citizens of Pennsylvania. This would be the ultimate destruction of our democracy," unquote. Susan had it right. We cannot allow anybody, and she put that word in all caps, to overturn the legal votes of the people of our state. Let me address the allegation regarding the Pennsylvania Constitution and the General Assembly. Somehow that the General Assembly didn't have the authority to enact no excuse mail-in voting, that process for the people of our state. First, the law in question, Act 77, was passed in 2019 and was implemented without any serious question as to its constitutionality. The law was passed by a Republican-controlled General Assembly, House and Senate. It was only after the 2020 election, when it became clear that President-elect Joe Biden won Pennsylvania by a little more than 80,000 votes, did some Republican politicians in our state decide to challenge the constitutionality of the law. Second, Act 77 is plainly constitutional. My colleagues allege that the state constitution requires in-person voting except under limited circumstances. This is not true. While Pennsylvania lays out specific situations in which absentee voting is required, there is no in-person requirement in our state's constitution. The Constitution set a floor, not a ceiling, for this type of voting. Second, apart from the argument made by my colleague, there's bipartisan agreement across our state, at the local, state, and federal level, that our election was fair, secure, and lawful. On Monday, my colleague from Pennsylvania, Senator Toomey, wrote in an op-ed, and I'm quoting, "The evidence is overwhelming that Joe Biden won this election," unquote. There's simply no evidence to justify the outrageous claims of widespread voter fraud or election irregularities suggested by those seeking to overturn the election. 60 cases, court after court, all throughout our state and throughout the country, including the Supreme Court, dealing with this bizarre argument that we know is based upon that lie. In one court, the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit, Judge Bibas, appointed by President Trump, he said, quote, "The campaign's claims have no merit," unquote. The United States, he said, has free and fair elections, which are the lifeblood of our democracy. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here, unquote. So said Judge Bibas. Finally, Mr. President, a word about those election officials who did such work. These election officials all across our state, Republicans and Democrats, from red counties and blue counties, they did their jobs. They are patriots. And these objections are an attack on these Pennsylvania public servants. Give you one example. Republican Commissioner Al Schmidt, I should say, of Philadelphia. He wrote, and I said, and he wrote, as I will quote as follows, quote, there really should not be a disagreement, regardless of party affiliation, when we're talking about counting votes by eligible voters. It's not a very controversial thing, or at least it shouldn't be, unquote. After Election Day, Commissioner Al Schmidt, his family and his colleagues were subjected to death threats simply because he was trying to do his job with integrity. It calls to mind, Mr. President, that great line from America the Beautiful, "Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years." These election officials, like so many of our patriots, we heard from Senator Duckworth tonight, a real patriot. These patriots did their job. Let's support these patriots. Vote against this objection.
Majority Leader. I yield 5 minutes to the senator from Utah, Senator Romney.
Senator from Utah.
Mr. President, today was heartbreaking, and I was shaken to the core as I thought about the people I met in China and Russia and Afghanistan and Iraq and other places who yearn for freedom and who look to this building and these shores as a place of hope. And I saw the images being broadcast around the world, and it breaks my heart. I have 25 grandchildren. Many of them were watching TV, thinking about this building, whether their grandpa was okay. I knew I was okay. I must tell you as well, I was proud to serve with these men and women. This is an extraordinary group of people. I'm proud to be a member of the United States Senate and meet with people of integrity as we do here today. Now we gather due to a selfish man's injured pride and the outrage of supporters who he has deliberately misinformed for the past 2 months and stirred to action this very morning. What happened here today was an insurrection incited by the President of the United States. Those who choose to continue to support is a dangerous gambit by objecting to the results of a legitimate democratic election will forever be seen as being complicit in an unprecedented attack against our democracy. Fairly or not, they'll be remembered for their role in the shameful episode in American history. That will be their legacy. I salute Senator Langford and Loeffler and Braun and Daines, and I'm sure others, who in the light of today's outrage have withdrawn their objection. For any who remain insistent on an audit in order to satisfy the many people who believe that the election was stolen, I'd offer this perspective. No congressional audit is ever going to convince these voters, particularly when the president will continue to say that the election was stolen. The best way we can show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth. That's the burden. That's the duty of leadership. The truth is that President-elect Biden won the election. President Trump lost. I've had that experience myself. It's no fun. Scores of courts, the president's own attorney general, state election officials, both Republican and Democrat, have reached that unequivocal decision. And in light of today's sad circumstances, I asked my colleague, do we weigh our own political fortunes more heavily than we weigh the strength of our republic? the strength of our democracy, and the cause of freedom? What's the weight of personal acclaim compared to the weight of conscience? Leader McConnell said that the vote today is the most important in his 36 years of public service. Think of that. Authorizing 2 wars, voting on 2 impeachments. He said that not because the vote reveals something about the election, it's because this vote reveals something about us. I urge my colleagues to move forward with completing the electoral count, to refrain from further objections, and to unanimously affirm the legitimacy of the presidential election. Thank you, Mr. President.